Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolves, phantoms, zombies, gorgons, mad scientists, abominable snowmen. These are the monsters that they have created. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Ingrid Pitt, Veronica Carson, Oliver Reed, Madeline Smith, Barbara Shelley, Michael Gow, Hazel Court, Bartine Beswick. These are the people that faced the horrors. Jimmy Sangster, Terrence Fisher, Michael Carreras, Peter Sasty, John Elder, Evan Jones, Anthony Hines. These are the people who created the horrors behind Hammer Studios. Welcome to Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, your gateway into classic horror cinema, brought to you by Broken Lighthouse Pictures and Something Wicked Entertainment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our wonderful podcast in which we delve deep into everything that is Hammer Studio Horror. And if you're a fan of those classic movies from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this is the perfect podcast for you. As me and a special guest will take an individual film and we will kind of go through it and critique, analyze, discuss this film in a manner in which is easy and entertaining for you to take into yourself, I guess. This being said, we have a lot of fun on this show, and I always love to have my special guests on here. So without further ado, let me get to the special guest today before I get to the title of the film that we're doing, and that would be Mr. Thomas Tinnerello and Mr. Dave Watkins. Thank you both for joining us on the program today.
Good to be back. It's Hammer time.
Hammer gets me so hard. Music gets me. Oh, my Lord.
Oh, Jesus. And the film we are talking about, because we have been deep in the Frankenstein franchise since starting the podcast, and we are now on Frankenstein Created Woman from 1968, and I believe this is the fourth one in the franchise, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't want to lose track.
Four of seven of them.
Because everyone who's listening to the podcast, please remember that we are going in order of the release date of each of these films, just to have an idea of how these films progressed from each individual film. So it will be interesting. As everyone knows on this program, none of us were alive when this film was originally released.
Why are you gonna keep telling people that?
Because but people who have not heard the podcast before, and this may be their first episode, have to know that we are coming from the experience of not having been around when it originally released, but we are coming around as another generation, a subsequent generation, and delving into these films, just like I hope that some of our listeners have never heard of or not familiar with studio films. So,
when Jim's on here, he was alive when these were out. So it's a little bit different perspective. It's very interesting what he has to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's always interesting for when he's on there, because he can tell us some of the ones that he actually saw with his father at the theater when he was a kid. But that being said, none of us were alive back then.
Take our words for it, because if you're watching the audio version, you're watching this without any video. I mean, Dave's got a nice, deep, gravelly voice. He could conceivably be a very old man with that voice.
Yeah, I could make it sound even older too. It'd be like Frankenstein created a woman.
Yeah, am I the oldest one here? I may be the oldest.
You are. I think
you're old. You're really old
here, Kevin.
Yeah.
So that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get started with Frankenstein Created Woman, which is an interesting one in the franchise. Now that I'm watching it in order. I'm gonna ask each of you, how did you come across the film, and kind of what was your initial perspectives on this film? And we'll start with, I guess, Thomas today.
Oh, I thank you, Kevin. So my first blush with this movie was, as I comb back into my memories, I realized that this is another film that I encountered on Dr. Paul Bearer's Creature Features, which was on WTSP. channel I don't remember, back in when I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida. Dr. Paul Bearer was the horror host for the St. Pete, Tampa area when I grew up in the mid '90s, and he did that show for many many years. And I take a little bit of time to tell people what about Dr. Paul, because he's almost never mentioned whenever people talk about the great horror hosts, and he was very important to me. And so this was on there, as were many many random grab bags of different movies. Most of them were not great. In fact, he would make a joke every show. He would say, "And today's horrible old movie, and it's really horrible if my name isn't Dr. Paul Bearer." He probably didn't say that for this one, but because he probably actually liked the Hammer movies, and there are quite a few Hammer movies on Dr. Paul's show. This one, though, I never actually saw all the way through. I saw just one clip, and it like arrested me and like haunted me for years, because I had no idea what was going on, and it jumped to commercial right after. And for whatever reason, I didn't stick around. I just saw a commercial. Well, they had a bumper like after a commercial where it would show like the title, creature features, and the movie. So I knew the clip I had just seen was for this movie called Frankenstein Created Woman. That is it. I never watched the rest of the movie. Maybe I got too scared when I saw, but what I saw, you know what? I think I'll hold that back to when we get to talking about that scene, because I'll let you know what I saw. It was one of the murder scenes. I'll put it that way. So yeah, that was that, and yeah. So that's how I had the first, and then later on, I got to see much more of it when my favorite YouTuber James Rolfe, he of the Angry Video Game Nerd and Cinemassacre Monster Madness, did his Hammerthon. And this was one of the ones where he did a very in-depth review of Frankenstein Created Woman and all the other Hammer Frankensteins and Draculas. So that's where I saw more of this and realized, oh, this is that movie I saw. And I finally watched it all the way through day before yesterday. So I'm coming in fresh with my observations about this movie.
Okay. All right. What about you, Dave?
So it wasn't very long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I got the Scream Factory Blu-ray of this one. I I think it's one of the Hammer Frankenstein films I've seen. I've seen a lot of the Dracula ones, but this is probably the second or third of the Frankenstein ones I saw. But it's very unique. We'll get into that here in a bit, but I mean, I liked it the first time I saw it, and there's some things we'll talk about. But how about you?
So, I was always aware of this film growing up, but I avoided it because of the title. It said Frankenstein Created Woman, and
Yeah.
I thought it was some cheesy movie that I was like, oh, that's not going to be for me. Frankenstein Created Woman, God.
Well, Thomas usually points it out first, but none of these titles make that much sense. Even this one kind of works a little bit, but not really.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
honestly, compared to the other Frankenstein titles, this makes the most sense, actually. Frankenstein does actually kind of create a woman in this, and
Kind of.
it works.
But
I mean,
Kevin said it doesn't work because it makes you sound like a really stupid movie, which I kind of
Yes.
agree with
So
that.
when I was growing up, I didn't know what Hammer was, so I didn't have that reference point. I just saw the title and Frankenstein Created Woman. I was like, what the hell? I'm not gonna watch that crap. And so I avoided it like the plague. Like I would see it pop up every once in a while, and I didn't really know Peter Cushing was in it. And I just kind of knew the title of the movie, Frankenstein Created Woman, and so I avoided it like the plague. But when I started doing my whole Hammer watch, kind of inundated myself with everything Hammer, I finally got the movie as part of yet another one of the Hammer, triple box sets with 3 films in it. So that's how I wasn't looking for this one. This one just happened to be on the box set with 2 other films, and so I said, okay, I'll freaking watch it. And then I realized Peter Cushing was in the damn movie.
of
Uh,
course.
but yeah, well, the thing is that when I was going through my whole Hammer thing, I didn't realize, or I didn't take note that like I knew Christopher Lee wasn't in all of the Dracula movies, and Peter Cushing wasn't in all of the Frankenstein movies, and so I wasn't really paying that much attention when I first was
Yeah.
delving into
Well,
Hammer.
well,
What?
well, Peter Cushing is in all of them except for the
Yeah,
reboot, but he's really. in most of them. Only one near the end he's not in.
That was
Yeah.
probably one of the first ones I watched,
Yeah.
though. Uh, I watched these even in worse order than I did the Dracula movies. At least I saw the first and third one right after each
Yeah.
other. But after
Well, if you watch
uh,
the one he's not in, though, that one is kind of like a reboot of Curse of Frankenstein. So it's a lot. That is an okay starting point. It's just not as this just doesn't have Peter Cushing in it.
yeah,
So
it
the
doesn't have Peter
performance
Cushing.
isn't
Uh,
quite
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
and,
and it does have uh David Prowse as the monster in that
Yeah.
one.
yeah.
So you got
First,
Darth Vader's body
first
as
the
that
two
creature.
times of him
Yeah.
playing that monster. Yeah.
And also, when you think about it, for me, when I finally did see it, Frankenstein Created Woman, and you realize, in my opinion, he doesn't really create a woman. Like, I was expecting Bride the Reanimator type of creating creating.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I
Yeah.
see Reanimator a billion times as a kid, but when when I finally got around to this, I'm like, oh, okay. So to be honest with you, I haven't seen this. I've only seen this movie twice. It didn't make enough impression on me when I first saw it for me to go back and rewatch them, which is why it's good for me to watch these in order in which they were released, because I'm having a different opinion and outlook on this entire franchise as we're watching it.
Right.
Okay.
I think expectations on these films is something to take into consideration. Like you're thinking this is completely different than what you would expect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's like that with a lot of them. Like I think even Thomas talked about Revenge of Frankenstein when the monster wasn't really a monster in that one. It was more of a guy that the evolves as the film goes on. But it's like there's some they do play with the stuff a little bit different than you would think. You think it would always be a monster.
You
Yeah,
do.
and I have said that before. And for the most part, I still carry that opinion that I am always slightly disappointed in a Frankenstein movie in which Frankenstein doesn't actually create a proper monster.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to show a little bit of my cards early and say this movie is the exception to that rule. And we'll talk about why as we go along.
Well, it's funny because I did realize that while watching this one, it took me a few moments to realize this because they mentioned it a little bit later in the film. That he Frankenstein, or Baron Frankenstein as he is known in this movie, and his assistant Hertz. Is it Hertz?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
Hertz.
like,
Uh,
yeah.
Hertz.
Played by Thorley Walters, who played in that Dracula, the Prince of Darkness Dracula. He played the kind of Renfield character.
Yep, he was the Renfield
Yeah,
analog.
yeah,
And if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken, wasn't he also the innkeeper and not innkeeper, but like the
Landlord.
bartender guy in
They call him
Dracula's Risen from
landlord.
the landlord in
Yeah.
Dracula's Risen from the Grave?
No, that's
No,
Michael Ripper.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. Different dude.
he does kind of look like him a little bit in that though. But this, yeah, I like the Dr. Hertz character in this one a lot.
Dr.
Yes.
Hertz's character is
Yeah.
interesting in this film in that he not only he's a traditional doctor, so he doesn't always understand everything Frankenstein is trying to do. So I like the fact that Frankenstein it has to kind of re-explain everything that he's doing because
Yeah.
in this film they just jump straight into the story.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, he's like an audience surrogate for us.
Yeah,
Because he has to explain it to him, and therefore he explains it to us.
yeah.
And you're right; it just jumps right in. I feel like this is the first of the Hammer Frankenstein's that does absolutely no setup, has no character development in the first like 10 minutes. Like we hit the ground running, and you have to I feel sorry for I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there and you haven't watched a single daggum Hammer Frankenstein movie, which by the way, why are you even listening to this podcast if you haven't? But do not start with this movie. Please don't. Because this is not the one you start with. Start with
Yeah.
any of the other ones before this one, or even Horror of Frankenstein, the reboot. But please don't start with this one. You will be lost.
Well, as far as continuity, talk about this real quick. So with Terrence no shit, mix them. Terrence Fisher, not Freddie Francis. Terrence Fisher
You had a
directed.
50-50 shot, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, but here, Freddie Francis directed the previous one. That's the only one of the Frankensteins other than the reboot that he directed. Terrence Fisher directed all the rest of them.
Right.
This one was really supposed to take place after the second one, Revenge of Frankenstein.
Right. And
But
that's where this title kind of comes from, because in my research I found out that because this was supposed to be the direct sequel to Revenge of Frankenstein, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense either, because when Revenge, he was in London having a
yeah.
very successful practice and a very successful porn stash with his new body.
Yeah, I mean,
So
they
it doesn't make
completely
any sense.
dropped. Yeah, they
Yeah,
dropped
yeah,
that.
they dropped that obviously, but at that time though, I forgot his name. Oh, Roger Vadim had a very successful movie called "And God Created Woman," starring Brigitte Bardot, I believe, and it was like the movie that made Brigitte Bardot a star. So the title was basically a parody of "And God Created Woman," and the original title was "And Then Frankenstein Created Woman."
Yeah, I guess they were playing off of that. That's but yeah, it was originally supposed to be a direct sequel to Revenge, but they clearly had to change it. It doesn't. The Evil of Frankenstein, the one right before this, it doesn't go with that at all. But
No.
it's kind of a mixture between the two because he's not the same Frankenstein as he was in Revenge, and he's definitely not the same from Evil. He's somewhere in between. He's not.
Yeah, they split the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah.
Which one?
So
Now which one had him where he was no longer able to use his hands? Because he's not able to use his hands in this one. That's why he uses Hurt. Hurt. They mentioned that.
yeah.
Huh.
He's the one who does all.
It's from that happens in Revenge because
Okay.
remember they beat the shit out of
Yeah,
him and
I
then he
couldn't
has to have
remember.
plastic surgery
Yeah,
or whatever.
Oh. I
Yeah.
didn't even notice that detail.
I just noticed it.
I thought maybe it was like some kind of some kind of freaking side effect of being frozen, because that was like a weird thing.
It might as well, yeah, might as well have been though. It might as well
I
because
mean,
they don't
the
explain
truth
it.
is,
So.
the only reason why I picked up on it is because we've been watching them in the order, and so I remember one of the films being that his hands were all screwed up and he was no longer able to use them, and they made mention of that in this one several times because Frankenstein also makes sure to tell it's Hertz who does all the physical alterations to the Christina character. He's the hands, and he Hertz is the hands, and he's the brain of the whole thing. So
Yeah, you got the body, I got the brain. Very
yeah,
Freddy Krueger of him.
yeah. So that's the only reason why I picked it up. I picked up
That's
on
the
it.
Will Smith version of Freddy Krueger. Isn't
Yes.
But yeah. I mean, it's but he's
Yeah.
also he's still like though he's still kind of more he's still kind of got that kind of clinical point of view distancing a little bit, but he still seems to be more friendly in this one, especially
Oh
towards
yeah,
Hertz and even a little bit towards Christina and of course towards Hans. But he's still got that clinical mind where he does distance himself in a lot of situations, but he's not as maniacal or
no,
as he was in Revenge. So
no, but he is cynical, and I love
yeah,
his little quips to people, his little sides to people who just don't understand how smart he really is.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
the trial scene. The
It's
trial
just
scene is the
great.
best.
yeah.
It's so good.
But I feel like the question of the trial too is like, did he play them the whole time on purpose? Which they don't reveal this because they didn't want the audience. I think the writers maybe knew this, but it was a scam to actually get another body or another soul because he probably could have gotten the guy out of the situation had he really wanted to.
Yeah, I
But it
don't
seems like
know.
yeah,
I don't know.
Um,
We'll talk about that when we get to it. But
you
yeah,
know,
like I
actually,
don't
this
know.
plays into how the film opens for me because that whole trial and the scam and the whole way that the townspeople are so quick to tell people are guilty and
yeah,
not give them the benefit of the doubt plays in the opening scene for me with Hans as a little boy watching his father being decapitated at the
yeah,
guillotine.
Oh
Uh,
gosh, the guillotine.
yeah.
This franchise, especially, is in love with the guillotine, aren't they? From the very beginning.
very
Yeah.
beginning. But it's a very big story element in this one because Hans is kind of haunted by it, because after that he watches his father get killed, he has to go by it every day when he's going to the lab, and
Oh yeah, I think it's funny that I mean, first of all, this guillotine should probably have had its own credit. It's shown more times as some supporting actors in this movie. It's like its own character. It's
yeah,
beautifully shot. the director, Terrence Fisher, clearly loves it too. And like this is one, in fact, this is one shot that's like it's backlit by the sun, and I forget which character's looking at it, but it looks almost ethereal, this guillotine. But like I feel like the funny thing about that beginning is like the guillotine, which by the way, this is weird that the guillotine is supposed to be like this spectacle of death. You know,
Yeah.
that was the whole thing about the creator of the guillotine. He wanted to try and despectacleize
Yeah.
the execution, and it did the opposite. People were coming from miles around to see this death machine work. But here they put the guillotine seemingly in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you would think it would be like right in the center of town where everybody could just like, you know, go get a bagel and then watch someone get their head chopped off.
Yeah.
Well,
But
we
no.
do get that mentality a little later when Christina's coming back in the carriage,
Oh yeah.
and her
Yeah.
companion.
Very, very excited. Very
Yeah, that
excited
person's
about it. It's
excited.
hilarious.
Oh, we have to
Yeah,
hurry
yeah.
up. We gotta hurry up.
Yeah.
It's the only time in the whole movie we see anyone excited to go see someone get decapitated, unlike some other films. And so it was really interesting that just came out of there. I was like, oh shit, okay.
There's something Python-esque about that little exchange.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the beheading! Let's go see
I
it.
know.
Maybe they'll get
But
some
it's
popcorn.
yeah. But the whole guillotine thing and the like father like son thing is a very dark thing that happens in this film,
Mhm.
especially that his son's been holding that his whole life, and then he ends up with the same situation in front of him. But it's sort of like something that he couldn't get out of no matter what he tried to do eventually.
Well, that's how
Well,
he felt, anyways. He
Yeah.
always claims that he will just end up like his father. But I think, and for me, and this is because I see Hans as really the main character of this film.
Oh,
because
yeah.
we're following him the entire story. I see a lot of the stuff that happens to Hans is more or less his own fault, which is really bad. But
Yeah.
because he refuses to tell the cops about
Yeah.
Christina.
Really
There's no
annoying,
reason
actually.
why.
Yeah, it's close to
Yeah.
the plot. Close to the plot, you know.
Yeah, it's a plot thing. It does. And then when he's in the trial, he refuses still. Like it's not like she's a princess or a queen or something.
It's
I
like,
don't
dude,
know.
it's like,
I
dude,
don't
they're
know.
literally going to kill you if you don't say this.
If you
And
don't
then-
say something. So I thought that was just like kind of that rubbed me the wrong way when I rewatched it. But yeah,
I don't know. I have some ideas about that, but they're probably not right. But anyway, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like there is a thing where I feel like, well, first of all, we should probably just like give a little bit of groundwork here because there's people out there who probably don't know why this man is put on trial. Although most of the time it's usually just for murder. But anyway, and it is in this one. But there are reasons for it. So like this guy Hans is the son of a convicted murderer who got executed. We saw that. And by the way, I love the time jump from when he's a boy to a man. And we know that it's boy Hans is the same guy because he's wearing the same clothes. But as an adult, it's very scary. I've never seen anybody do that. But and apparently he runs back, and we have no idea. Like this whole opening gambit with Hans and his father, and like it goes for a fairly long time, and then you're like, what does this have to do with Frankenstein? Well, sure enough, he goes into the lab, and that's where we get the Frankenstein resurrection scene, which I don't think they really ever do that again. Or since, because like usually Dracula Resurrection is a big part of these sequels, but never you see Frankenstein getting revived. Like when I first saw them pull his carbon freeze body out of the thing, I thought for sure, oh, this is how they kept him alive from the burning death of the last movie. Because if you recall, Evil of Frankenstein, the castle burned down, he was trying to save his monster. So I thought, oh, this is how they saved him from that. But once once Peter Cushing's Frankenstein comes back to life, he explains that this is actually just an experiment they've been doing. They put him purposely on ice for an hour. And I'm like, oh, so this is completely not connected to that one at all. But what he's been doing is, and then Hans comes in and he's like their assistant. He's the Igor of this group, basically. And he explains to them that the whole time he was dead, quote unquote, but his soul did not leave his body. How he knew his soul didn't leave his body, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's convinced that his soul did not leave his body the whole time. So he thought there's got to be a way to capture the soul, to create some kind of field, to keep it in there. Kind of the way that the ice kept it alive. So he didn't want to freeze everything. He didn't want to become Mr. Freeze and make a freeze ray. So that's his big experiment, is creating something to transfer the soul, which, and this is part and partial to Frankenstein's weird psychology, because you see him later on perfect the force field by making the machine, which gets its power from some weird rock in the ground. And they shoot a ray or something at this little wine glass. And then Frankenstein shoots it with a gun. And it goes, pew! And he's like, indestructible matter, incredible. And he's like, that's how we will do it. And he says, that's what we'll create a field around the body, and we will capture the soul that way and put it in, and I will reconstruct a new body for it, or I'll repair the old body and we'll put the soul back in it, and we will have conquered death that way. And I'm thinking the whole time, wait a minute. Frankenstein. You literally created an indestructible force field with 19th century technology-ish. And you could have just as easily taken that, sold it to the British military or Swedish military, because this is Switzerland, and they would have won World War I when it happened, because they would have invincible soldiers with force fields around them. They would have been indestructible. But no, it's just like in the first movie. Remember when he brought that little dog back to life? And he's like, well, no, now we have to create a whole being. We had to stitch it together from parts and use that formula I made to bring back that puppy, and we're going to use it to make a man. It's like, wait a minute, you could rest on your freaking laurels.
He's got his own agenda, and he doesn't care about the money part of it. He wants to, whatever he's trying to accomplish is what he's trying to accomplish. So
he's a chronic overachiever, is what he is.
No, he is Herbert West. He is Herbert West. Herbert West has one goal in the reanimated films. He doesn't care about money. He doesn't care about fame. He has one goal. And Frankenstein in these movies is the exact same way. He doesn't care about money at all, ever. He said, I'll just put it on my tab. Or he manipulates people to pay for stuff. Like, he's a baron. He should be rich. But, Hertz pays for everything in the lab.
Poor guy.
With that, it's really interesting the way that they do the metaphysical stuff with the soul in this one. It's kind of usually there's medical and they do it through medical stuff. Here they completely just say we could take the soul from the body and put it inside of this glass and move it
wild,
move it around. It's just
it's very matter of fact the way he just buys it too.
Yeah,
and it struck me as a little weird at first because like you said before, it was totally biological. It's totally like the thing that makes a human, the seat of its personality in the previous Frankenstein films is the brain. It's all about the brain. It's always been about transferring brains. But now this movie makes a jump to something that actually I found out was very popular in that time period. As it turns out, there were a lot of people who were experimenting with alchemy. They were all about trying to figure out ways to find the soul, characterize the soul, and trap the soul, or keep the soul from leaving the body. There's actually another movie about this very alchemical, like science, quote unquote, that I've always wanted to see, but I haven't had a chance to see. That's the same idea. It's called The Ass Sphinx. I think it was with Robert Powell, where he's trying to take the soul out, but it turns out the soul is like this really weird looking floating head monster. But it's really bizarre. But that's the kind of thing that they were doing back then. In fact, I read somewhere that the doctor, I think Hans or Peter Christoph Drippel, was this very famous alchemist who was trying to do just that, because he tried to create life from a dead creature and it failed. So then he became obsessed with extending life. And this was one of the things that he did. And allegedly that guy was the inspiration for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So it all makes sense that this Frankenstein would eventually be interested in
alchemy,
soul transference. But it's a little weird, though, for this Frankenstein, though, to be all about that, because I'm pretty sure that at least the Frankenstein of the first two movies is definitely an atheist. I don't know why he would just believe that there's a soul.
Yeah.
but it's kind of weird for him. But like I said, it was in vogue back then, so I don't know.
Plus, it's like it seems like it's a lot easier than doing the surgery because you could just somehow get the soul out and then move it to the other body somehow. So,
Yeah, well, he really
but
leaned into. Apparently, with this one, he really leaned into the physics aspect of his training because remember at the trial they said, "What are you a doctor of?" He's like, "Well, a doctor of medicine, physics,
yeah,
um, psychiatry."
he usually
Witchcraft.
doesn't even. Yeah, he usually doesn't
Witchcraft.
even. Say, yeah. But that's where they accuse him of witchcraft, which is
I know.
illegal. But he usually doesn't say he's a doctor. He usually just says he's a baron.
Oh yeah, because
But,
remember we talked about that in the
yeah,
first movie. He is not a medical doctor at all. He
I
is
mean, yeah.
homeschooled. He does not have a degree.
Yeah, he's not even billed as like in the credits. He's always billed as
Baron.
Baron Victor Frankenstein, never doctor
He is
in these.
he's a self-taught doctor.
Yeah,
I mean, who
yeah,
knows? Who knows, Dave? Maybe he took a correspondence course just to get his degree.
yeah. Well, this is a completely different one anyway from the first one. Anyway, so
Yeah.
he's. But I still don't know if he's really a doctor, like medical. I think he's just taught himself,
Yeah.
or or just hanging around other people trying to figure out like the in the first one where the other guy taught him until he learned everything the other guy did and then started doing his own thing. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's how I see him.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is an interesting Baron Frankenstein is an interesting character as opposed to Dr. Frankenstein that we're used to seeing because he's not really a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
So
all kinds of things.
Well,
Yeah.
I think they really were trying to pull away from some of his sociopathic
yes,
stuff.
yes,
But even though it's still there, but I think he's still doing it. But they really tried to make him more sympathetic,
yeah,
but not as sympathetic as they did in Evil of Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's true too. Although I feel like in this movie they didn't have to do that as much because, like you said, and I agree, this movie is not really about Frankenstein. This movie is
no,
about Hans. Is about the tragic love story of
yes,
Hans and Christina.
yeah.
These two poor
Yeah.
people who get wrapped up and screwed by fate and a lot of other things.
Fate
I-
and the overprivileged and rich who don't really seem like they're very rich since they have a huge tab at the bar.
Oh gosh, what Kevin is referring
Well, no,
to, ladies
they're
and
kind of
gentlemen,
like yeah.
what Kevin's referring to, ladies and gentlemen, real quick before we get into it, are the three most a-hole dandies you have ever seen in the history of cinema and God. These people are awful, and that is an understatement of understatements. You will want to see them die from the word go. It's
Anton,
terrible.
Carl, and Johann.
That was their names. I did not care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anton,
Yeah.
Carl, and Johann. I was a little
Yeah,
surprised at the
yeah.
order in which they died. I would have thought Anton would have been saved for last, but because he was like the main one. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the way you just that's actually the order that they die, Anton, Carl, and Johann.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
Anton is the worst one. But it's hilarious though how shitty they are. They're just
Yeah.
so shitty.
Oh yeah.
And
So, like,
I don't
they
even know
come
how they can function doing what they're doing. You know,
I don't
Because
know.
they're-
Like, it's never made very clear exactly what they do.
They don't do
if
anything. They don't do anything.
Yeah, they got
Anton's father-
inheritance. Yeah.
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 Anton's father has influence in that town, and so they kind of just let them do whatever they want to do.
Right. And they come into this pub, which is the only reason why they even make a contact with Hans is because Hans is sent to this pub to go and get some champagne to celebrate their successful experiment with soul transference and all that. They wanted to get some brandy or wine or whatever, but they said, "Oh, let's just get some champagne." So he's going to get some champagne.
Yeah.
And
Real
his whole
quick on that,
business-
though, what happens is that the Professor Hertz has brandy, but it's so bad that
Yeah.
they send him out to get the champagne. 'Cause he actually
Yeah.
uses the brandy to wake Frankenstein back up because that's how bad it smells.
Oh gosh, so yeah. So Frankenstein is a brandy snob in this. That's what it is. So he's trying to get champagne at this bar. He can't really afford it, so he pays for it with his coat, which is, by the way, going to the bar from the lab, I thought was very funny because like this town seems utterly deserted.
Yes.
Except for these four a-hole dandies from the pit of hell. But anyway, he gets
Small
there.
cast.
So what is it?
Small cast for this one. You're right. The streets and
Yeah.
everything looks bare. The only time we see a lot of people is when they're the trial. The trial, that's the only time we
Yeah.
see a lot of people.
But there's a
Oh
few
yeah,
other times when there's people in the scenes, like when there's bodies and there's a bunch of people standing over it
The
looking at them. But
onlookers, the
oh
yeah,
yeah,
onlookers.
but
yeah,
here it's kind of weird that there's not that many people in the pub. There's one
Yeah,
pub in town, and then these idiots just come in there and just like lounge out and take over the whole thing, and nobody else
yeah.
is there.
They lounge. Yeah, that's right. They lounge out. They take over the whole pub. They're super obnoxious. But what really kicks it over the edge and makes them just like human garbage, and I hate to use that term
yeah.
in referring to humans at all, but they're fictional characters, so I feel a little better saying it. They are utterly human garbage when they literally say, "Hey, bring down your daughter, Christina."
Yeah.
And Christina comes down, and you see, even though she's got her hair covering half of her face, she's got like a scar and a burn over half of her face, and apparently she's also disabled. Like she's got a withered, crooked arm, and she limps. And they want her to serve them, knowing full well how difficult it is for her. And she spills things on the guy's freaking shirt, and he gets mad at her, and they make fun of her face so much. And eventually this leads to one of the guys getting into a fight with Hans, and I love this fight, by the way. It is a great
Yeah,
barroom
yeah, that's good.
brawl.
Yeah,
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 I
three of
love
them
this.
against Hans.
Oh yeah, and my favorite scene, my favorite part of the barroom brawl, which is almost like Sam Raimi-esque, is that when they're punching him and they've got him against the wall, and Hans has got his hand on a china cabinet or something, and he's trying to grab a plate to slam on their heads. All the plates slide off. He's got nothing. But oh wait, there's a salt shaker. He grabs the salt shaker and just assaults them with the salt
yeah.
in their faces and burns their eyes.
Well, yeah, he cuts the one dude across the face with a knife.
Yes.
Yeah,
Anton.
yeah. It's- yeah,
Yes, and that's when Frankenstein comes in with Dr. Hans Heinz and says, what's his really trouble here? And he's like, oh, you should get that looked at.
yeah.
And
Well, yeah, but
and
Oh,
the police come
up
first and
first.
they
They
break it
wait.
up. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
they
yeah,
come. They break up the fight, and then they ask if Christina's father wants to press any charges, and of course he doesn't. Despite the fact he's not a big fan of Hans, but he's also a bigger non-fan of the Anton and his group, his cronies. Which is funny because the cops say you want to press charges and make it everyone known that the three of you got assaulted by one guy. It was three
yeah.
to one.
It's you got your butt handed to you by one dude. Do you really want to know that? Want everyone to know that? He's like, no.
I did find
Yeah.
that hilarious there, though.
Yeah, and it's funny that they stay in the pub. You think after all that shit, they would like the landlord would want them out of there, but
Yeah.
yeah. It's like,
You think people are banned from pubs all the time, but he never does.
yeah,
They
Because
just
he's
hang
got
around.
influence.
yeah. They got influence, but I was like yeah, we just watching it the first time, especially because they're like they're the one that calls the fight, and they're saying all this stuff to him and his daughter, like really the most horrible shit you could say to people.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, and then they just sit down like they're good friends with him, or he's like their slave or whatever. It's like he just goes along with it.
Until they can't pay the bill, and then he the barkeep or Christina's father hopes they don't ever come back, but he already they've already come back several times and not paid their bill. So I guarantee you he thinks that they'll just come back again when they need a fucking drink. So
Well, that's the thing, but he's asked them to pay the bill. You think when they
yeah.
came in the door, it would be like, guys, settle up before we get any more. So
Yeah, no.
that could have ended it real quick right
Yeah,
then.
but you get a sense that there is a different way of approaching rich people as they do as poor, because he wants to throw Hans out, even though he says like the Baron can pay for it or I'll pay. He has to trade something. He's not gonna take anything on credit from Hans, because Hans he knows is poor.
Yeah. I guess he figures their dad would eventually come and settle the tab. Like
Probably.
They would probably come in there at some point, and he just pay a bunch of it all at one time.
Yeah.
It'd be a good payday.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so sad though. And then it gets even worse, where like this movie kind of takes an interesting turn that you don't normally see, where characters like Christina generally aren't romantic leads in movies, and I really like that she is in this movie, and that she actually goes upstairs with Hans, and they're already in a relationship, and like
Yeah.
she loves and he loves her even though she's deformed. He doesn't care, and
Right.
she just can't see herself as pretty, and she just wants to be normal. She doesn't want to be beautiful. She says this is beautiful, heartbreaking kind of monologue she has there. And then they have some sex, which is very I mean, you don't see it obviously,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just like, wow, I didn't expect
Yeah,
that.
Yeah. No, I liked it. It was refreshing though, because a lot of times it's like especially because her dad doesn't like him, and then you just suspect it would be like something that they would never get around to until
yeah,
they were
yeah, yeah.
married or something. So it's like,
Yeah, and then it takes another turn where those daggum freaking a-hole dandies are loitering outside her window, and
Yeah, like they have
and
nothing better to do than to
they
pick
started
up.
like singing like a song and like making fun of her being a virgin. But she's like, I don't even know why they would get mad. She's up there not a virgin clearly, and they're talking about her being a virgin, and it's
It's
and
like,
being ugly,
yeah,
and it's like the worst kind of like sub Twitter level trolling to set to a lifting melody that you've
yeah.
ever heard, and it's awful. It's so awful.
it
I,
is.
I agree that it's awful, but I was cracking up just because of how dumb it was and how they were like laughing about it. It's just like they're saying the dumbest thing and they're just like laughing, like it's like kids in like elementary school or
You're
middle
right,
school,
actually. Yeah,
It's like,
that's a better descriptor for it. It does kind of bring back some horrible memories of kids in middle school to
yeah,
me. Yeah, actually. Thank
but
you for
yeah,
that, Dave, by the way.
yeah. But then it's funny because she is just like, don't worry about it. She's not even that concerned. She's just like,
No.
it's bullshit. I'm not a virgin. I just had sex with you.
And
And it
yeah,
doesn't matter if I'm ugly because you like me, so we're good. But he's getting madder than hell,
Yeah,
and
he can't control his temper.
because
Well,
he's got to
he says
defend
he
her.
can't control his temper either. So
oh yeah, that's another thing. It's like his temper and
But
like the whole nature nurture thing, which is a big recurring theme in these movies. It's the
yeah,
question of, yeah, what governs our actions? Is it nature or nurture?
we did skip over that part that you started to talk about with the Frankenstein and Hertz come in there when he's bleeding, like that when the Anton character's bleeding after
Yeah,
the knife wound, which is an
yeah.
awesome scene.
I don't remember
well,
exactly what happens after that.
after the cops take Hans away, the Anton and them are sitting down, and Frankenstein and what's his face
And
Hertz
Hertz.
walk in, and they realize that that the wine, like the champagne. Frankenstein immediately sees his bottle of champagne. Oh, that must be my champagne. And then of course they're looking for Hans, and then that's when it's revealed that there was a slight altercation, and then Frankenstein, knowing that he can manipulate anybody pretty much, kind of manipulates those thugs, Anton and his boys, into having Hertz fix Anton in exchange for money so that they can have dinner and pay for everything.
Well, I'm pretty sure like it's like they must have taken all of their money because then they don't have money after that to pay the landlord.
Yeah.
So, but
Well,
it's yeah,
that's the funny thing
yeah,
is that
yeah,
Frankenstein is not dumb either, because he says we need it up front. To
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's such a great like they needed medical attention. They probably needed stitches, but
Yeah.
it's such a almost like a scam the way Frankenstein does it. Even
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's hilarious, really. It's
Yeah,
just
and that guy has that scar for the rest of the movie too.
yeah, it heals pretty quick. But I guess so. There's a lot of time in between those some stuff. That's right, because there
Is
is.
there?
Yeah, well, I'm
Well,
thinking.
6 months at
Yeah, no,
least.
there is after she does the recovery after the transference of
Oh
the
yeah,
soul.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
but I don't know if it
Yeah.
shows it. Yeah, because they probably doesn't show those three pricks again until after that.
Oh
No,
gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
but in those 3 months, there's new people running the bar and all this other shit. So yeah, yeah. But Frankenstein, her sit down, have a great dinner. It looks like they're having steak dinner and everything. It looks like they had a good dinner in there.
He just goes ahead and spends all the money immediately that he
He
gets.
spends all the money
That's
immediately.
how Frankenstein operates. I think he doesn't keep money. He just if he has
No,
it, it's going to steak. He's getting
yeah, but then he
it.
gets hurt. Like, oh, we have to go. We have to go to the next phase in our experiment. Like the first one, the first experiment was literally just to figure out if if they could revive Frankenstein after an hour. The second one is when they figure out the whole thing about trying to do something with the soul. You gotta keep that in mind because he had, the first experiment he had to figure out that the soul's still in the body. Then the second experiment is when he figures out
Right.
everything else. So they
Yeah.
leave, and then of course, Rebecca.
It hurts is kind of like he said he's a little tired, but he's like
Tired.
going to go along with it anyway. So he's like, I guess we're doing it.
But yeah, because he's Frankenstein's hands, so
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has to do all the work.
But that's after. So after they go, the three pricks go and do the song and all that. That's when they come back to the pub and they realize that the landlord had left it unlocked. Now it's weird, like they're called landlords. Now in the U.S., landlord means something completely different. Apparently, it is the person who owns the pub and takes care of it, from what I'm to understand from not looking it up, but just from the movies. So it may be kind of
Yeah.
weird for us saying landlord. People are thinking that the person who runs an apartment complex or something, but or owns a
Yeah.
house, but they are the people that take care of the pubs.
Yeah, I think they made that term just to differentiate from landlord to landowner.
Yeah.
Because like the landowner would be like the local duke or lord. But if you just own the pub, I mean, yes, you own that land, kind of, sort of, but that's about
Yeah,
it.
some of these Hammer films, they seem to have more pull than others. Like sometimes the landlord seems to have a lot of pull, especially. Well, actually, it was in the one of those Twins of Evil movies. Was that the Vampire Lovers? They really like put a lot into what the landlord had to say in that one more than most of the other ones. But anyways, this landlord, he left his
He
place
left a
unlocked.
what an incompetent dude, really.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But he gets back to his house or his apartment and he's going to try to get inside the door. Then he realizes that he left his keys. But he had a rough night. You think
Yeah.
about what happened here with these guys coming in there and humiliating him and his daughter all night, and they just stay the whole night, and then they cause fights, and it's exhausting, I'm sure. He's like physically and mentally exhausted from all that.
Yeah.
And they break back into his place, breaking and entering, just to get
Well,
some
they don't
more
break in. The
wine.
door was open.
Yeah,
They
they
Well,
just
it's still
walk
breaking
in.
and entering.
Yeah.
It's still breaking and entering. Legally speaking, it's
Yeah.
still breaking and entering, even if it's an unlocked door. But yeah, I only know this because of lots of things I'll get into later. But anyway, so yeah, and they're there, and then comes the guy, comes the landlord. Oops, let's hide. And then they hide. And then a bottle rolls, and he's like, I know you're in there. And then they're like jumping out, like, let's kill him. And they do.
Yeah.
And they clockwork orange him to death with their canes, basically. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh gosh, can this get any worse?
Well, right before that happens, he does pick up Hans's coat, which is actually hurts his coat, but he does pick that up. So the landlord's got the damn coat in his hand when he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And that is the fateful bit of evidence that convicts Hans
that's
of
all
the
they need.
crime. That's all you need.
Yes.
That's all you need back then.
It is like, it's funny how nobody witnessed him giving him the coat because there's no other extras in there. So nobody knew it was his coat. He could have just denied. But Hans, being the type of person he is, he's not going to lie to the cops, and he's also not going to tell them who his alibi is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's where I'll get into what I'm talking about that here, because as we suggested here, poor Hans could just as easily have said, because they ask him point blank, "Where were you during the murder?" And he can't say any. He's not saying anything when he could have said, "Well, I was shipping my girlfriend upstairs." But either
And her dad's dead. He doesn't even have to worry about the dad being mad about it
no,
anymore.
he doesn't. You're right. He doesn't have to worry about that. But I think there's two things to consider here. Number one, I think that Hans was probably considering her in a Victorian sense of honor, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because if she got the reputation for being a slut, quote unquote, that I think that it would be bad for her. I don't think he had any illusions about eventually marrying her because he's so poor. But, I think he probably thought that it would damage her reputation. The other aspect of that is even if he wasn't thinking that, the problem is, legally speaking, even if he did say, I was upstairs stripping Christine all night, which sounds terrible to say, but yes, the problem is that still puts him at the scene of the crime. because you could just as easily walk downstairs between stripping sessions and come down, kill the guy, and go back upstairs.
So
I thought it was a different location.
it is a different
No.
location.
Yeah.
It is a different
Is it?
location. Yeah, her
Oh, it
place
is?
is around the corner. Her place is around the corner because you gotta remember, after she's been gone for 6 months, she takes back Antoine.
Right. Oh,
that
that's
place.
what that house was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
really close, but
It's really
yeah,
close.
but,
It's like
yeah.
right
But
around the
still,
corner.
though, it is
But
it's literally
yeah.
right around the corner.
Yeah, it's
He
right
might as
around.
well be on the scene of the crime. So it really doesn't matter that much if he just come out and said, "Yeah, I was stripping." So it's not going to really work. So that's
Well,
probably
yeah.
why.
I
That's
think it's
probably why.
I think it is the honor thing. I mean, it's definitely like what you're saying, the honor thing, and
I don't
it's
know
but
about
it's
that.
like a stupid. It's like it's not like a small thing here. Just we're talking about
I
him
think
getting his head cut off, but I guess he
I,
thinks he deserves it though. From that's
I,
another
I,
thing, you know.
I think that has nothing to do with any type of honor at all. I don't see this as being him trying to protect her honor. They're poor. They're not at that level where they care about that, dude. That's not something that either one of them cares
So
about.
you think they're just trying to annoy the audience with all this shit?
I think it's a plot device. I think it's a plot device. I think it's the only way to quickly get them to a trial without his character knowing what's going on, because what they've got to do with plot wise is get him to where he gets killed in the movie for the rest of the movie to go, and to get her out of the way, because he doesn't realize that he's being questioned by the cops until after he's taken her to the coach to go out of town to go see a doctor.
Is that where she's going to see a doctor?
Yeah, that's where
yeah.
she was going. She
She was
mentioned
going
she
to go
was
see
going
a
to go
doctor
see
to go
somebody.
give her another assessment of her stuff. So the thing is, she doesn't even realize her dad's dead by the time she gets back into town. She just sees him being killed, and then she kills herself. Like,
She literally, like, instantly, as soon as his head is in the basket,
yeah.
which you do see, it's a very nice headshot.
So,
Right. Yeah.
But like she straight up Ophelia's herself right after.
Yeah, I think this is all more like plot, because that's why the movie didn't, like, there's certain elements for me, the story wise, is like, shit, this is all plot driven, so that they can get from point A to point B to point C as quickly as possible, and not always go by the logic.
Well, that court thing went on for a while, though.
Yeah, it did. It did. It was like, but the whole thing is, for a while there, you kind of, it's almost like they don't tell the cops when they come and take Hans away. They don't actually tell him who he's murdered. Like,
Yeah,
they're
terrible. Murder.
They're terrible cops, and
you do that though. You don't want to. You want to like get information before you, especially if you have somebody you think did it. You don't want to tell them right away. You want to like leave them in the dark as long as you can.
But the thing is this, for us modern day law enforcement versus the old school, like, the cops were assuming that people would just tell them the truth all the time, for one. And if they didn't tell them the truth, they just wouldn't say anything, like Hans does. Like, Hans doesn't tell them anything, and so that's automatically means he's guilty. Like,
yeah, and he doesn't even get like a representative either. It's I know that British law is very different than, because they have an adversarial, they have a inquisitorial type of system of law, whereas we have an adversarial system where it's two adversaries, the prosecution and the defense, have to duke it out to make their case. Whereas in British law, I don't know about Swedish law or whatever country this is supposed to be set in, but in Britain, you're really more, it's just you and the judge, basically. And the judge is going to ask you a lot of questions, which is kind of what happens here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it tends
to happen like that in these Hammer films. Gorgon, it's like that.
It becomes a courtroom drama in the middle of this movie.
Not much of a drama, because he doesn't do anything. Like, he doesn't, like, even during the trial, Frankenstein has no idea why he's there. Why he's they literally just bring him there, and they don't tell him why Hans is on trial. Like,
it's so weird. It's kind of Kafka-esque in a sense, kind of like the Kafka story, The Trial. Where this whole guy is put on trial for something, and he never has any idea what his crime is. But I love the reveal.
Do you think he was guilty in the trial, or do you think he was innocent?
I haven't actually read the book, so I don't know.
There's a movie, Anthony
This movie
Perkins
with
in it, and
Anthony Perkins.
there's one
Yeah.
with Kyle
I
MacLachlan
tried.
too.
I tried watching that, and I just at the time I just couldn't. Like, there's
Yeah.
something about the pacing of it I just didn't vibe
Well,
with.
it's frustrating though to see somebody going through this, and it's very frustrating in this movie too when it
Yes.
happens. But it's like that scene, that sequence in this movie for like a whole movie of just seeing this guy going through the ringer. And it's the first one especially. It's very the trial. It's very interesting because it never really tells you if he did it or not, and so you kind of have to think. You kind of. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I kind of lean towards it that he was guilty more than likely, but you never know what he did, and he doesn't know. So
I would have to reread the story. It has been I haven't reread the story in a long time. And of course,
yeah.
there has been film adaptations, comic book adaptations that have taken liberties with the story. Because
Orson Welles directed the one with Anthony
Yeah, that's the
Perkins
one
in
we're
it.
thinking of. Yeah.
But it's I watched it recently. But at the same time, it's left ambiguous, which is the point of it anyway, because it's unfair, just like this is unfair when this shit happens, and it's really
It's
annoying.
unfair, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's unfair for multiple different reasons. Why, Frankenstein and Hertz have no idea why they've been called to the court to answer these questions about Hans. Hans doesn't want to tell the truth when he should. He knows that the end result of the trial is going to be he's guilty of murder, cut off his head, and yet he says nothing, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like,
well, other than what Thomas said, which the honor thing, which you don't agree with, but I think it kind of works. But I think it is more too when you think about him accepting his fate, which he's always assumed he was going to die at the guillotine.
Closer.
It's like his dad died, and he's just gonna go ahead and get it over with because it's eventually going to happen anyway. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, I think that's closer. In my opinion, that is closer to what it is. But I think from my perspective, he has a sense of hope with Christina. Like, he doesn't have any hope with anybody else. And you would think that for her sake, he wouldn't just lie down and die, because he would be the only person who actually sees her as a person. Her father doesn't even see her as a person.
I agree. I agree. It's like a real tragedy.
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
And it's like because he sees it a certain way. Like I guess she's not gonna believe him, but she has to believe him. She was with him. But I don't. It's frustrating.
It's frustrating.
It is really frustrating.
But it's not. But it's not all doom and gloom, because like I love when Frankenstein is in the trial, how they reveal him. They just camera pans up to him, and he's just flipping through the Bible, just reading.
Yeah, he's like, that he just swore on, apparently. And we don't know he swore on it. He's looking through the Bible. I cannot believe he's going to swear on it.
He could swear on it and not mean it if he doesn't believe it. But
I know, right? He's in the trial, and then he's like doing that. He's answering the first couple questions. He's like, "Is this really necessary?"
I love that scene. Yeah. I love Peter. So great.
It's interesting though. Like again, this Frankenstein is not. It's weird because the evil of Frankenstein, he was able to go out and they weren't trying to kill him. Like, he wasn't supposed to be executed like he was in the original timeline. But in the original timeline, they were actively looking for him to execute him.
And he kept changing his name to very badly designed aliases like Dr. Frank.
Dr. Stein in it.
Yeah.
But here he can go into a courtroom and not be worried about any of that. Or just pretend like he's not worried anyway.
Yeah.
This is part of the whole thing with the Hammer Frankenstein films, where they just kind of, whatever suits the story they're saying is what they will change and make work. Logic, when it comes to continuity, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's like if we want a courtroom scene.
I choose to believe that this is either a whole separate timeline we're talking with this one, or I can buy that this is a sequel to Evil of Frankenstein. That this is the Evil of Frankenstein. He's just a little more jaded because it's been a couple of years since then. This is not like the Hammer Draculas, where it's just like one right after the other primarily until you get to Dracula 8074. That's a little different. But like, I think that it's probably still him, but I feel like he can still call himself Frankenstein at this point because A, most of the people who were probably after him are now dead, and B, for one reason or another, and B, it's like an argument that he made, I think, in Revenge of Frankenstein when they were trying to figure out who he was. And they said there are many Frankensteins. In fact, I could name several, and some of them are actually in
Yeah.
America right now practicing medicine. So basically, I think he could probably get away with saying that he's Frankenstein in this one just by clarifying. Oh, you mean am I the Frankenstein from Carlsbad, the Frankenstein from Geneva, or the Frankenstein's from I'm any of those things. And how can you prove that I'm that Frankenstein? You can't.
Yeah.
But yet, even then, he's still got this reputation for being somebody who does witchcraft, who does wild, weird stuff. Who may or may not like be able to turn himself into a toad and things like that.
But that's
Right.
because
Yeah.
Um,
He
he
almost
hasn't
gets
been
himself
around very long.
into that too, because that would not be a good thing to have them thinking that he does that shit either.
Well, he also doesn't believe in witchcraft, but if they want to call him witchcraft, he'll be fine with taking that title. But
Well,
there's,
I,
he
he hasn't
does
been
he
around
does in this
very long.
one though. He's like taking a soul from a body and transferring it.
That's a good
So
point.
yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah, that is a good point, Dave. Because and then I love the line at the trial where they're like, he's naming off his doctorates, and when one of the dandy a holes says witchcraft, and he's like, well, they don't have doctrines doctorates for witchcraft, but if they were, I probably would have that as well.
Yeah.
So he's like,
yeah.
he accepts it, and it's because alchemy was considered this thing on the borderlands between normal science and straight up witchcraft. Alchemy is like this very often misunderstood. Most people understand alchemy as just like trying to figure out how to turn lead into gold. That was a big part of it, but it's really like figuring out how to transmute substances of any kind into something else through a combination of chemistry, ritual, and astrology and things like that. Like all of that came into play in alchemy. There's like tons of books that they're even by like really like even the most learned people at universities in that day and age had degrees in alchemy. Like alchemy was an accepted, legit, quote unquote science. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the original, Mary Shelley's original book, Frankenstein, the creation of the creature is described more like an alchemical type process. There's not a lot of electrodes. There's not a raised platform. There's not,
No,
and none of that stuff's in the book. Yeah,
she
that's all
doesn't
James
describe
Whale.
any of that stuff. She doesn't
Yeah,
describe it. Yeah.
exactly. And the same, and you could say the same thing, and they did the exact same kind of, well, they totally leaned into the alchemy stuff in the Thomas Edison version of Frankenstein in 1910, where Frankenstein puts like a skeleton and
Yeah.
some meat in a freaking, chamber, and then turns on a switch and puts some gas and stuff in it, and then it just reverse photographies itself to life.
Yeah.
That's pure alchemy. That is pure alchemy. So it's neat with this movie that they kind of go back to that version of the Frankenstein mythos. So yeah,
And
it does. So
that,
it makes sense that he would say, "Oh, embrace the witchcraftiness of it" in this one.
so for everyone listening, Thomas did in fact just make a reference to Edison's 1910 Frankenstein, which you can watch on YouTube, I believe now.
Yep.
It's thought to have been destroyed for many fucking years until someone found it. So it's actually very interesting to watch if you've never watched it. So
Yeah, I even had an action figure of that monster. Like there was, but although I will say the action figure looks almost nothing like the monster in the film. It was much crazier. I wish I still had it. I think I sold it now that I think about it. But it was a really great monster. It was like this weird distorted thing with a half a face part missing and a bald head and arms that were way too long. It had two left hands. It was really, really insane.
well, getting back to this Frankenstein, I don't even remember where do we leave off, Jimmy?
So like what happens after that? That's
The
so
trial.
during the trial, after the trial, like Frankenstein is who's back at Frankenstein's place. He's with Hertz, and they come up with the plan. This is when we start to see what we normally think about Frankenstein. He's come up with a plan that they're going to get the body afterwards and take his soul, and they're going to
Oh
put it in
yeah.
another body. So
Yeah.
that's the real we see Frankenstein like we've known him in other movies. This is him, his like his brain really working and coming up with a plan that's just completely he doesn't care that he's kind of like separated himself from Hans as a
Oh
person,
yeah.
and he's really detached that, and he's really just thinking about the project at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where the sociopathic doctor from the first two movies kind of shows up.
Yeah,
Because he's got this idea, hey, this is perfect. Then we're not going to get an opportunity like this for a while. What's hurts? Let's get you go there, demand his body. It's like, I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can demand his body, and we could use his body and his head, we assume, because like take that off. And 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 we're gonna trap his soul with my machine.
Right,
And
well,
we will
yeah.
get it. And we'll get another body for him because bodies are everywhere. Souls are very rare. So
But
he's
yeah,
like, and I
so it
love
has,
how
yeah, it has to be like an hour. He figured it has to be an hour. You have an hour to get the
Yeah,
soul.
you have an
It's like,
hour,
yeah.
and he's like, you have an hour, and then Heinz is like, well, should we ask him for his permission? And he's
Yeah,
like, what? But why would we do that? He might
yeah.
say no.
That's That's the Frankenstein we know right there. And
Yeah.
that's when he
Yep.
finally
He
appears. But
surfaces. He surfaces.
but he
And I
it
love how
did. Yeah, yeah,
Heinz goes and gets the
yeah,
body. He
yeah,
goes to the jailer and basically blackmails him
yeah,
by
yeah.
saying, "Oh, you remember that lady who suddenly put on weight that you saw in Carlsbad," which is like the first reference to Carlsbad, which is a town in the Draculas, especially Dracula Prince of Darkness. So bam, they are in the same universe.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's like
It's
basically he tells the guy basically, look, I performed an abortion on your mistress.
yeah, yeah.
And when you got basically an STD from some other lady, I gave you medicine. You told your wife that it was like food poisoning, which yeah, I guess. So then he's like, what if she knew the truth? And then the guy's like, all right, you can have his headless body then. So that's how he gets it through
Yeah.
blackmail.
Yeah, I mean, he was going to pay him before that, but now you're just going to blackmail him. But I really like it that they showed that scene because that's the scene they easily could have cut out because it could have just been Frankenstein tells him to do it, and then later on you just see somebody helping him. But it's nice that they kept it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also puts a little bit of darkness in Heinz a little bit. It makes him a little shady and a little unscrupulous because aside from that scene, the rest of the movie, he's kind of innocent in a way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He does kind of flip it on him. So, and it's like it's funny too because when you're watching that scene, you're like, damn, he's never going to be able to get this guard to agree to this, and
Yep.
not not unless the guard's not into it, and it's like, and this guy doesn't seem like he's very convincing or persuasive.
No, but then he
But then
dropped the
he
abortion
was.
bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then he was out of nowhere. But
yeah.
I
So
guess,
then
and then yeah. So then after that, which we've already talked about, the execution and the suicide, and
Yep.
then the guards, which the suicide happens while Frankenstein needs that body, so that, like within an hour, and the suicide happens at the same time, and then the guard that he paid brings the body to his house, and he tells him to get out pretty rudely.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
but
it is.
then meanwhile, like they find Christina's body in the lake, and then they bring her body to him to try to get him to work on it. Which Hirsch is like, no, we can't do anything.
She's dead.
Yeah, yeah,
She's
yeah,
totally
yeah,
dead.
Yeah, the
yeah, yeah,
townspeople don't realize that she's dead. Like,
yeah,
can you help her? And Frankenstein's
yeah,
like, of course, we'll take it.
yeah.
She's
What's funny
only
is,
mostly,
yeah, it's
she's
funny
only
they never
mostly
ask for her
dead.
body again. It's like they just take the body and nobody ever questions it again. It's just like, okay,
Nope.
I guess we did what we needed to do.
But it's
Yeah.
weird because you think because of her deformities that the whole town would know who she is, but they don't seem to know who she is. These townspeople don't seem to know who she is.
Well,
Which
they
is
think
really
she's dead.
sad.
Yeah, well, they think she's dead, and she also looks a lot different. Like
Well,
Well,
even
no,
yeah, because
when she's dead, when they bring the body to Frankenstein, they don't seem to know who she is, though.
oh, they don't know then.
Yeah, they don't seem to know who she is.
Yeah.
no, they
Well, I
do
mean,
because
yeah.
they call her Christina when they revive her. Unless they're like randomly pick
No.
that
The
name.
townspeople, when they
Oh,
bring
the
the body,
townspeople.
the townspeople don't seem to know who it is that they jumped off the bridge. They just make a reference of this woman who just jumped off a bridge.
I mean, I didn't get that impression because I mean, well, it would all depend on how popular her dad's pub was. And from the scenes that we've seen, I don't think her dad's pub was very popular.
It's like
there's
what?
hardly anybody
Yeah.
there.
But it's weird that there's not because what are you going to do in a town like that?
Yeah,
And
that's
I
yeah,
know,
it's
right?
I mean, if the rich ruffians go there all the time, and they know of
Maybe
the
there's more than
disability,
one.
Christina. Yet I assume, because when we see films in this time period, there's always that one that has a disability that everyone seems to pick on in these towns, but no one seems to know who she is when they bring the body. It's like, oh, it's just a random girl. We just found her body in the river, and we're bringing it to you because we don't want to have to deal with it. And then they walk away and they leave.
Yeah, it's sad. But I do think it's interesting that this movie kind of flips the script on Revenge of Frankenstein. Because in Revenge of Frankenstein and many other, movies of this type, they would take a otherwise handsome person and eventually they become the ugly monster.
Yeah.
Like what happened to poor Carl, whatever, in the second movie. This one is a complete opposite, where he takes a deformed person and makes her beautiful. And that's the monster.
Yeah.
Which I think is neat.
No, that is exactly what happens. Yes.
Early version of plastic surgery, everyone in this one. Frankenstein and It Hurts discovered plastic surgery.
I wonder if it may have been easier though, because she was dead. I guess they did it while she was dead, or did they do it or they put the soul in first?
They put the soul in first. Because remember, when they revive or after all the stuff is taken place, the soul's already in it. So I would think that it would be pretty hard to do that on dead tissue because there's no soul in it. I would assume the body would be dead.
Yeah. Well, then again, though, if you do it on dead tissue, you don't have to worry about anesthesia. So there's that.
But 6 months.
It's really weird though, just the idea of the soul, and it's like, is it? And my question was right away are they bringing like Hans back, or is this going to be Christina? Like, is her soul still there? Or
that was my question, and I feel like the movie kind of answers it gradually. I think the answer is, I think the answer is that her soul is gone, but her mind, her brain is a different thing. And since we're talking about that, it would behoove us to talk about the actual soul transference scene and what that says about what this movie thinks the soul is, because it's fascinating. So, like, the actual I would say transformation, creation scene, if you will. Every Frankenstein movie has got to have one. This one has one like no other, because, like, it's just, they got a headless corpse on a gurney, and basically it's two giant heat lamps. That's pretty much what it is.
They're like satellite dishes, like
dish heat
carrots, like some carrot on the end, like orange thing.
Kind of, yeah. And it's like, when I was first watching this, I was thinking, oh gosh, how are they going to do this? What are they going to show? Because like this, they could do anything. Because we're in the realm of metaphysics here. We're in the realm of alchemy. They could literally put something on there that has no logical bearing whatsoever. So production designers can just do whatever they want. And what they gave us, like, I didn't even know what to expect. So, like, Frankenstein's got some electrical stuff that he does. He's got those 3 rods that go into the weird rock that gives them energy for reasons. And
there's like a tuning fork thing there too.
A tuning fork, I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that thing at all. But it scared the crap out of me when it exploded.
Yeah,
because it jumped me. But like they got a tuning fork thing, so it's kind of a little Lovecraftian with like a resonator type thing going on here, which I thought was cool. But the 2 lamps basically start glowing at some point, and I figured, okay, I guess that's the soul. Like it's catching the energy. The energy, the soul is in the lamps, but then they don't show how they get from there to the chamber, because they got this chamber with the 2 lamps inside it, and Dr. Frankenstein looking all satisfied through the little slat, almost like a radiation chamber, and he's looking inside, and bam, you see Hans's soul, and it looks like a floating sun. It looks like a little mini star. And it's just a simple, beautiful, kind of animated yellowish effect. And it kind of tells you what this movie's idea of the soul is. Because let's delve in a little bit into some theology here for a second. Because in traditional Christian theology, the soul is completely immaterial. It's pure spirit. There's no substance that it's made of. And I'm talking traditional stuff. I'm not talking about the weird esoteric stuff. I'm talking about traditional Christian theology, Judaism as well. this factors into it. The soul is immaterial. But if you look at some Platonic or Socratic views of the soul in Greek philosophy, they had a whole thing that the soul, which by the way was indistinguishable from the mind, that's why they called it the psyche, was a thing that was material. It had a substance, and they believed they believed it was like a wispy type thing. It was like a lighter than air kind of sinuous thing, and they believed that you could touch it if a ghost, which was your soul, deported from your body, that you could touch it and you could pass through it, and that substance they called ectoplasm. And that's where we get that from. So they thought that the soul was made of this ectoplasm stuff and it lived inside your body until you died. So here it seems like they're taking that idea and also combining it with this kind of idea that's still very prevalent today in a lot of new age and like weird, like new thought esoteric people do, which is the idea that the soul is energy and that energy cannot be destroyed. So the soul is immortal because it's this weird ball of energy that somehow resides in the body somewhere, but we're not sure where. But where this movie gets really interesting, though, is when they take that ball of energy and put it in another body. Because then it brings up all sorts of other questions, which is, okay, this movie posits the idea that the soul is real, it's material. It doesn't say whether it's immortal or not, and it doesn't yet answer once Christine is revived and as a new creation with plastic surgery and everything. We don't know yet whether or not the soul is A, conscious, or B, has any kind of memories of its previous existence. And Dr. Frankenstein is very interested in finding that out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. The fact they put like a guy's soul into a woman's body too is like it is an interesting thing to do. What happens is
Dana?
I kind of feel like it's weird because sometimes I do feel like she's there too. Because at one point she does say Papa or something like that. I think when she
oh
says,
yeah,
no, no, I'm actually
you're right.
yeah.
He does
But yeah,
because she goes. They take her in a carriage ride
yeah.
with a blindfold, and Dr. Frankenstein wants to see if she, or the soul within her, remembers dying at the guillotine. And
Yeah.
instead of having a flashback or a traumatic kind of flash of dying, the trauma that comes out is the trauma of the little kid who saw his father die, which I think is interesting.
But then, by me saying that, that's actually not her. That's Hans.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's the
so,
thing that's neat
yeah.
about. Yeah, that's the thing that's neat about this movie is it crosses an idea of what if you could divorce or not divorce, but like make separate just enough your soul from your mind, because that's what comes that's it's kind of sort of this idea of the bicameral mind, which is not a theory I subscribe to, but it's very popular. If you've seen the show Westworld, you'll know all about the bicameral mind and everything. This idea that you have, or that at least people had at some point in the distant past, a mind that had two selves, like your left brain was one self and your right brain was another self, and they talked to each other, but they didn't know they were talking to each other. So that's kind of what this is this idea of two separate minds, but one is immaterial and one is material. Because I think it's pretty clear that poor Christina's soul is gone because it can't possibly hang on for more than 6 months unless they froze her, I guess. But I don't think that happened. I don't think her soul is in her body. I think what's in her is just her brain. And her brain, with its neural pathways, has her personality, has her sense of, childlikeness and maybe innocence, has her maybe manners and stuff, and her sense of self is still intact. But there's nothing else. So the dominant personality, the soul of Hans, is gonna manipulate her. But at no point does she ever refuse him. So it's not ever made clear if having a body without a soul, or that just has a brain and a mind, has a will of its own, basically. So that's a question this movie never really answers, but it proposes, which is, where is the will of a human being? Where is our free will? Does it even exist?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, she doesn't seem to fight what he does. I think.
No,
Yeah,
not
I
at
mean,
all. If
yeah,
anything, she like leans into it. Like there's a I
yeah,
mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but there's a scene later on which is probably my favorite part of the whole movie because it is so bizarre and wild and shocking, where like she steals his head and
yeah,
sticks it on a pointy banister with blood dripping from it, a little trickle of blood, very tasteful. But like his head is right there. It's a very realistic looking head. I think they just superimposed the guy actor's face on it somehow, but it was really good looking. And she's basically like praying to this head and asking it like, "What else you want me to do?" and things like that. It's almost like a little god.
I
This
don't think she's
head.
praying to it. I think that's part of the character, the new Christina, trying to figure out her identity. I don't think Hans is completely in control. I think the head that is kind of like a personification of part of what is in what part of Hans that is in Christina, or Christina would have realized who and what she was the moment that she woke up, or when she saw the guillotine, and it just seems to be flashes of stuff.
Yeah, it's
Because
interesting too.
when
It's
she
interesting
goes to
too. Now,
Hans, when Hans takes over the body completely, and he dresses up in all the elegant clothing to try and manipulate the Anton Johann, the whatchamacallit, that is clearly Hans doing that. But when you
yeah,
see the other sections, it doesn't seem like Hans is there. It seems that whatever is left of the Christina is there. It's kind of like very end when she talks to Hans for the very last time, and then Christina goes off the cliff. Hans is not there. Whatever
no,
is
he's
left,
released her in a way,
yeah.
but
But then you
well,
can't say that
yeah.
Christina's completely gone either. Then
But there
yeah,
is this though. It's like she's clearly not acting like a guy. She's walking
exactly.
like a
that's what
woman.
You're right. That's
Yeah,
what I expected to see. I expected to see an actress kind of try to emulate the mannerisms of that guy,
yeah.
but they never get that. We never get
Oh,
that at all.
well, I think that's just to make it easier for the
It,
plot.
it, it,
I think that's a plot thing. I
but
think if
yeah, but think, but yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
spend time trying to do that in this movie with the short time period. Hans has to figure out how to be a girl, dress really provocatively, walk Yeah, I think yeah, you're spending time on the wrong thing with this type of movie.
Yeah, but just yeah, but just to know how to seduce the guys and know how to. I mean, I'm saying that there's still her there, and even though even say if it was Hans, there's a separate. I think there's still a separation between the two
Well, yeah, yeah, but
because
I don't
like
think
say when she's like with one of the guys and she actually doing moves like a woman would do like kissing them and things like that where if it was Hans he might if he was everything that she has that she does is about getting revenge but would he still would he still go that far as to do that part which it isn't necessary.
no.
No,
I
I
mean,
don't think so either.
he would probably
Hans
try to
being
avoid doing that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think Hans. I think for the plot of the film, it's the way. That's why it is. This is why I think this is very plot driven for me because I don't believe that Hans. I think if Hans would manipulate them just to get them into a space where he can kill them, and then there wouldn't be any reason for him to ever try to sexually
Yeah.
manipulate them, like he does with Johann. Where they go off from the carriage, they sit down they have a little picnic, and then before he kills her or before she kills him. Jesus, I'm getting the pronouns wrong. Before let's just say
Oh,
they. Before
you know what? Oh my gosh! If anybody is justified with that pronoun, it is certainly this character. She's definitely a they
Yeah,
them.
because yeah,
I
you got
think
like two. Yeah, you definitely got two souls there. Or I don't even know. I mean, I'm still not. I have a
so.
hard time saying her
I
soul's
don't.
all the way
I
gone. I
don't
just
think,
don't
I
and that's
don't
why I
know.
think
called it New Christina. I don't think
Yeah,
it's the real Christina.
you're
I
right.
think
Yes,
it's
I agree with
what
you.
happens when
I, yeah.
Christina, when there
I'll
is
call her
no soul
Christina
in Hansa.
2.0. But
Christina 2.0. Yes, it's Christina 2.0.
I
yeah,
Um,
mean, yeah, she is a new creation. I mean, she has the
yeah,
brain of the old Christine's body, although it's probably been damaged by lack of oxygen in the water. But like, yeah, it's a new person
yeah.
But so that's why the title makes sense. Frankenstein did create woman. The problem is that he gave her a soul that was hell bent on revenge.
Yeah, which is also kind of weird too, because he doesn't know that they killed Christina's father. So
no.
you have to assume he's just pissed off because it's he just wants to kill these three who made fun of Christina. Yeah, like we're not. If you
I don't. You know what?
why-
Now that I think about it,
He has to know. He has to know, though.
How would he
does
know?
Does he though? Because
He
I don't
doesn't
think.
know that they broke into the bar or when
And
they
he doesn't.
killed them.
And you know what? And you know what? And you know what? I don't think he even knew that they were an item. I don't think he even knew that Christine and Hans were a thing. If he did,
Anton and them, no.
I don't think he knew.
No.
I don't think Dr. Frankenstein was even thinking, oh, what a lovely thing that he wanted her body and now they can both live in the same body together. How romantic. I don't think he even thought that.
Frankenstein wouldn't even cared what Hans was doing.
Yeah.
That's why I say there's a
that is crazy. Yeah.
This is very
that makes it even more
driven.
weird though in a way too.
It's very plot driven. It's like we have
but
to
yeah,
from A to B.
I think the way it's presented, I think even though that makes no sense, I think the character knows that these three guys were responsible, but it doesn't make any sense for them to know because nobody knows.
Nobody
for a fact. Yeah, and it's like it could have been anybody.
I think we're just supposed to believe that Dr. Frankenstein is a genius, and he's also like a super. He could be like a detective too. He kind of functions like a detective in the last half an hour of this movie. Which, by the way, quick sidebar: this movie has very odd pacing because all the stuff that we mentioned with the soul transference and the creation, all that literally happens halfway through this movie. Like the killings and all that don't even happen until we have only a half an hour left in this movie. In other words, like this movie is called Frankenstein's Created Woman, and he hasn't created woman until the last half of an hour and a half movie. So this might be what we would call a slow burn for modern audiences.
I did write down a few timestamps. At like 49 minutes into it, that's when the execution happens. So it's after 49 minutes. It's an hour and 27 minutes long. So
yikes.
Yeah. So, but it's like and the whole time it's like you thinking what's going to happen? Like what is going to be the monster in this one exactly? Until it's actually even though like the last 30s mostly Christina, it really Christina focused and Frankenstein for the last part he's there, but he's not like he's kind of a side character a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly I kind of like that at this point in the franchise. Weirdly, I think if they could have kept going with that, where each do almost a kind of like an anthology. Well, it reminds me of the structure of the Sandman comic and series, where like Sandman is the main character, quote unquote, but he's not really. If you look at every single issue and every single episode of Netflix's Sandman, Sandman's barely in it. Sandman's just the thing that connects all of the episodes, but really each episode is about whatever character it's about, that particular thing. So it's the same thing here. I could have been where each Frankenstein, where it's just Frankenstein gets into some shenanigans, making a new creature, doing some weird esoteric stuff like he does in this one. And it could have just been about the poor people who get caught up in his wake.
Yeah.
And that would have been really interesting. But if they just kept doing that.
There's some really nice there's some nice work though between Hertz and Frankenstein, and with Christina they're trying to just the different they're almost like her parents in a way, and just a different way that they approach it. Hertz is very like mother-like, where Frankenstein becomes very father-like, like very stern with everything. It's
very neat how their relationship evolves there. And also the movie at that point, kind of when she realizes she has to kill because Hans is telling her to kill, it kind of becomes a slasher movie.
Yeah, it does.
Well, yes, because as before or during each one of the people who get killed, they actually hear Hans's voice and not Christina's voice. It's like when Anton first starts to go a little nuts, he's in the alleyway and he starts hearing Hans's voice.
Oh yeah.
Before he goes into the bar that
It's coming from her mouth though, because we
yeah,
see that in the one of the later scenes. But at first I was thinking there was a disembodied voice that from
That's what I
Anton
thought.
that like for a while I
Yeah,
was like
that's what I thought too.
which would have
That's
been
what I thought
cool.
too.
well, the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anton one is the only one that may seem like that because there's some time in between when he first hears the voice and then he goes in the bar with his friends and they're drinking and playing cards and there's some time period in between there before the two men leave because they're sick of him. And then he finally leaves the bar and then sees Christina at the top of the hill.
yeah.
So
And and before he leaves, I think it's funny that he's so drunk he's trying to do card tricks
yeah,
with the cards with the cards facing the guy. Like, here, pick a
Yeah.
card, any card. And it's like, and then he won't do it. And he's like, what's wrong with people? And he slams the cards on the floor, and it's the ace of spades. And then he spills wine, and it looks like blood. Oh no, he's got two bad omens in a row. He knows he's donezo. But then that's when he gets outside and sees this beautiful lady sitting there looking all hot, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get some tonight." And
he doesn't believe it she's real either, which is quite funny.
which is kind of, well, actually, it's kind of neat because, like, to me, that gives an extra layer of like ghost story ish to it, and ethereality to it. And you know what? I just said ghost story, but it's also
Quite
literally reminds me of Peter Straub's Ghost Story, because that is also the plot of Peter Straub's Ghost Story, where a lady comes back from the dead and gets revenge on the four rich guys who killed her. So yeah, weird, huh? But anyway, so like she takes him to her abandoned apartment, and that's where she kills him. And that, gentleman and everybody here, that is what I saw when I was a kid on Creature Feature. I saw the climax of that, where she says, "I'm going to get dressed and want something more comfortable," and she's taken forever, and he follows her in, and we don't even see her. We just see his terrified face and the voice of Hans going, "Kill, kill, 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 kill," and then smash cut to the guillotine, and then
So what do you make of that guillotine shot? Because I know after the next person's killed, it cuts to a close up of a piece of wood. You think the guillotine killed Anton, or you think that's just the guillotine just randomly falling?
I don't know,
I don't
because
know.
like we never see how his body. We are never told how he died. We are like
He's
yeah,
been murdered.
we don't know. We have
Yeah.
no idea. I think it's just there to be stylistic and symbolic.
Yeah.
I think that's all it's for.
But
But I do love how the very next thing is Christine coming through the door saying breakfast. And she's
yeah.
right after you murdered somebody.
Yeah.
Breakfast.
Yeah, that's Christina 2.0. That's not Han. That's Christina 2.0 bringing breakfast.
Yes.
I know, but there's like, but that style, it pretty much continues on to the second murder, which is a little bit more stylistically accomplished, where she lures the second guy whose name I can't remember and don't really care.
It's Carl's his name.
Carl.
Carl, like always, Carl. You know?
There's always a Carl. There's always
Carl
a
and
Carl.
Paul and Hans.
Yes, but anyway, like she takes him to the bar. They get drunk. He spills some wine on her. And she's like, "Oh, I gotta wash my dress. I'll be right back." And she goes in and gets this huge cleaver knife and comes after him. And it's beautifully like giallo lighting with the red on her on her hand and the freaking knife and everything. And she just goes right after his head. And just as the knife would have come on right on his and split his noggin, it's splitting wood. And she's like, "Oh, I love chopping wood." And Dr. Hines is like, "No.
That.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say that, the guillotine shot's very similar to that shot because it just cuts to it. But it's such a that sequence is great though. That goes into the kitchen and she's standing there with that damn big ass cleaver.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I noticed about that scene though, this little out of place. The curtains, they're like some beaded curtains that look like they came out of the 70s in between the kitchen to which is like, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, they're like kind of almost look, they're kind of colorful, like kind of psychedelic looking color.
Yeah, a little hippie. A little hippie-ish.
Yeah, a little out of place, but whatever. It's still it's a cool scene though. It's probably one of the better scenes in the film.
Oh yeah.
With this murder, though, there is a note left behind.
Yes. He literally scrawled Hans's name in blood on the floor.
You think he did that? Because why would he do that? Like, why would he say it was the girl? I mean, I guess the voice. You heard his voice, so I guess maybe.
I don't know. I think I don't know. I mean, Hans is a disenfranchised soul from another body. I don't think he's thinking through his murder plan very well. I mean,
No, I mean it's. I guess. Like, I guess the guy. I mean, did I guess the guy did it, or do you think she did it? Like, or he did it? Just
You know what?
like a
I
calling card. Like I did this. Like
I always
Hans did
assumed
it.
that Hans did it, but you're right. It would seem weird for Hans to put his own name down there. It would
Just
seem
taking
more of a
credit.
dying thing from some guy, like we've seen Giallo films actually, where the person who's dying puts the name of the person who.
oh, I didn't think
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I didn't think
that.
about that
Yeah.
either.
That was actually what I thought happened, but then I'm thinking it may be Hans like taking credit for his work and proud of it, you know?
He doesn't do that for the first
Yeah.
murder. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I will
But
have
he
to
hear
watch
you know,
that.
he does hear Hans's voice though
Yes.
coming from her, so that even though it's her that kills him, just hearing his voice, maybe the guy.
Well, if we rewatch this and we see that there's blood on his fingers next to the scrawled message, I think that would be
I'm pretty sure
that
there
would clinch it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like I'm pretty sure there is, but at the same time, it could have been like taking the blood and using his finger to make it look like he wrote it. But I think it's like him, the guy who died, is trying to tell on him. But and
I
Hans is a shorter name than Christina, so
Yeah.
it was like so I only got like three or four letters left in me, so I'm gonna go with Hans on this one.
I
So
don't know. That's
That
pretty hardcore though. If it is him, like the victim who did it after he got like cleaved in the head,
yeah,
like that's his brain is bleeding and that's
yeah,
the thing he can do.
yeah.
But we see that a lot in those in the 70s Giallo films. We see that a lot in those. So I now that I think about that, that could be. I don't know. That's a good thing to rewatch and kind of look and see if there's like blood on his fingers or something like that, because that would be a good thing. That could
Yeah.
be that was cut out and it's just there because it looks cool to have Hans's name
Well,
there.
yeah, it's what brings the cops to see Frankenstein because then they come to see him at his house and
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so,
I was waiting for one of you guys to say that, so I didn't have to say it's plot driven.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I feel like it's funny because like Hans put the Hans name and they make the logical leap that it is he's back from the grave. Who brings people back from the grave? Frankenstein. This is all
Yeah,
his fault. And we literally get an angry mob.
yeah.
And I was and my heart warmed a little bit because we don't get angry peasant mobs very often in this Frankenstein franchise. In fact, I'm not sure we ever really got one in. We may. Oh no, we had one in Evil of Frankenstein. That was it. So this is the only two
Yeah.
Hammer Frankensteins that I know of where we have a legit angry mob. And
There
it's not
is,
even, and it's not a very big. It's not a very
nah,
big
No.
mob. Unfortunately, it's
nah,
like five,
this
six
isn't
guys.
that.
That's
This
it.
isn't that legit. You get a
No.
legit one in Scars of Dracula. This, that one's.
Well, yeah, and keep in mind that they say if Frankenstein doesn't come out and answer for this, there will be an angry mob. Really.
Yeah, they have to really say. Yeah, they have to say that because they don't have enough people, right?
So he stops whatever he's doing to say, "Okay, I'll go answer."
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then this is the point where this happens, and you're right, Kevin, that pretty much every Hammer movie has this thing where the plot just goes into high speed, the pacing gets supercharged, and they have to end everything very quickly.
Very
And
fast.
just one thing happens right after the other. In fact, I'm gonna coin it. I'm gonna coin a term I'm gonna make a definition for what that thing is. I'm gonna call it, I'm calling it right now. I'm trademarking it, it's mine. I'm calling it the Hammer Hurry Up.
Yeah, I like
This is
that.
the
I like that. Yeah, and that's what
yeah.
happens. It
And
always
this
happens in the
happens
last 15 minutes.
15
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah,
Actually, I looked at my thing. It happens in the last 10 minutes of this
yeah,
movie. So
yeah.
much
I think
happens in the
yeah,
last 10 minutes.
yeah.
It's insane.
But that's
Cool,
when
though. Go
they
ahead.
they make the next leap to go dig up Hans's grave to confirm that everything's fine, and then the head's not there. Then it shows Christina with the head, like you were talking about earlier, and having the
Yeah.
conversation with the head, which is pretty cool. It's like that's
It,
some reanimator stuff right there, you
oh
know?
yeah.
Is like pre-reanimator.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then the camera goes up to the shadow of the head, as it's talking, I fully expected the shadow of its lips to move, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. But
But then,
the hammer hurry up just keeps revving up because after that we get the Frankenstein is getting accused of this stuff. He unravels the mystery, and then he realizes there's one more murder, and they try to get him, and he just locks the door and runs out the roof and just
Yeah.
Jackie Chan's it off his own roof, gets onto a carriage and just bolts it
yeah.
to try and catch up.
Yeah,
It's a really bad Frankenstein move in that scene though, because he tells the cops everything, everything.
Dude, Frankenstein has no reason to tell the cops everything. He literally tells them everything as if the cops are the dumbest people in the world.
And they believe it.
The dumbest people in the world.
But they believe it. But it's like he tells them that he's doing witchcraft essentially, and
I mean,
tells on himself. That's not a very Frankenstein move.
No, it's not.
It's not very. But he does care now. I think about he's more concerned about her because he needs to get back to her.
Yeah.
And he's thinking maybe if he just tells the cops what they want to know, he could get out of there. Plus, we only have 10 minutes left on top of that. So.
Yeah. I think you made a good point. Watkins, because at first I thought, I was a little confused when I was watching this. I was thinking, wait a minute, why is Dr. Frankenstein trying to prevent this guy from getting murdered? I don't think he gives one frack about one less a-hole dandy in this world is a good thing to him. But I think what he was really trying to do is he was trying to get back his creation, the woman he created, Christine 2.0. I think that's, well, we already established that if in fact it is Frankenstein from Evil of Frankenstein, he's a guy who will do anything to save his creation. He will go into a burning castle to try and save his creation. So this is that save the creation moment where he's got to try and figure out some way to save her. So that's what he tries to do.
He comes up with the worst plan, though. It's like just telling them everything. They could have gotten rid of him, I think, a lot quicker had he not told him about the soul transference. It's
I think he does. I think that for the plot, he tells them everything. But I think that the Frankenstein character at this point doesn't really care about Christina. He cares about that the revelations that has come based on the fact that Hans has been killing these people. I think he more or less his experiment has gone further than he was expecting, and he needs to experiment back to get the answers that he's looking for. I don't think he cares about anything either way after that.
The third guy, actually, the last guy has a pretty good plan. He decides just to leave, which would have been a really good plan. But he gets in the carriage, and she just happens to be in that carriage. So,
you know why? Because the carriages only come a certain amount of times each day.
Yeah.
But
that carriage does have like a coat of arms on it. I noticed it in that shot. It's like a bear coat of arms, which is Switzerland. It's like Canton of Bern
it's
or
how
something.
it's how we know this is in fact Switzerland. That little carriage thing, which is like public transit for this particular era.
Yeah. So I expected. I mean, I could buy that she's in the carriage because of the fact that the carriages don't. It's not like they have a carriage every.
That makes sense. Yeah, because it's not like I didn't realize that was the case. I didn't realize that the carriage just kind of. I guess it makes sense though. That's what they do in some of the other films too. Like carriages come at certain points because they don't have trains or buses or anything.
It's like a Greyhound, you know.
Yeah.
So I was fine with that. It's but the thing that it breaks, the horse breaks the shoe, and I was like, this seems a little contrived here, but okay. It's funny though. The only thing she's carrying with her is the head.
In the hat box.
The hat box.
She has a picnic basket with her.
Yeah. Well,
and a bunch of picnic stuff like a blanket they use a coat. They use the coat for that. So.
And I totally thought she was gonna poison him. Yeah. But if she doesn't, that would have made more sense. But she doesn't. She just gets him super drunk and super horny, and her head on his head on her lap, and takes out a bread knife. It looks like, and just stabs him in the neck.
Yeah. She stabs the shit out of him though. She just keeps going. It's just pretty. It's not that it shows that much, but just the force behind that. And her acting's actually really good in this movie.
Yeah. I actually liked her a lot. A lot actually. Yeah. But it's cool because after she kills him, Frankenstein finally shows up.
Yeah.
Yep, and tries to like convince her to come back. But at this point, the soul of Hans has released her of
Yes.
her of his vengeance
Yeah.
quest.
I
And
I
it's
have
like
the I
weird.
have yeah, I have the dialogue for that. So she's talking to the head,
Yeah, she's talking to
and
him.
yeah, and he says that this in that weird voice, he's like, "You have done what you had to do, Christina. You may now rest in peace." So
So
yeah,
yeah, and so that's the only time where I could say that if there's not like a Christina 2.0, that Christina's soul is in there somewhere. But then it doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, why the real Christina would then go commit suicide by jumping back off the cliff.
because that's what she did before.
Right.
Well,
So
no,
Yeah,
again,
because
you're
watch
right.
this.
You're right. I think that's why I say it's not the real Christine.
Yeah, because
That Christine's soul has fled and has gone to her reward by the beginning, but by the midpoint of this movie.
yeah,
This Christine is, like
oh
I
no,
said, her brain and personality, which is material. And that thing, well, at least material in the sense that it's mortal and fleshly, not the same substance of whatever the heck the soul is made out of in this movie. But yeah, that's the thing that's left behind, and that's the cool thing about this movie. And it shows this, it plays this idea of what if your soul was of one person and your body slash brain was another, and they are at odds, or in this case they're being like manipulated. One's manipulating the other. But I think it's funny too is like I think she kills herself because once that mission is over, there's nothing left for her. Like she now realizes that her soul is not her own, and she's never going to be her own person. She
But you
knows
know,
what
yeah.
she is. She is a body, and there's nothing a body that has no purpose anymore. It kind
well,
of it asks the
That
question of like,
yeah.
are you? What I wrote down is like, it's like she can talk. Here's what it does. Here's what I think it does. It's like, what would really happen if we were to separate the mind from the soul, which the Greeks did not. But it's like, what if you could talk to your own soul? And that's kind of the bicameral mind thing. Hans is like a split personality. But once the soul has met its need, it's like there's nothing left for it to live for. And yeah, like we said, we've noticed that the brain has been the seat of the personality, but in this one, the core of who she is Hans. And once that's gone, there's nothing left. Just a shell.
It's interesting that
no,
the soul can just decide to leave when it's done. It's like
yeah, yeah.
it was it burn out or what, but
It seems like so. It
it
seems like that, although we never see that. It probably would have been helpful if they'd shown some kind of like glow around the severed head or something, to signify that. But they don't.
yeah.
Or
No, well,
maybe, or
Yeah.
maybe,
I
or
mean,
maybe I just thought of this. I just thought of this. Maybe, just maybe Christina 2.0 realizes that Hans needs to rest. Hans doesn't belong here anymore. He's a ghost basically that's fulfilled his will, and he shouldn't be here anymore. So the only way that he can go on and quote be at peace, go to his reward, whatever that would be, is for her to die. So I think if they'd laid more into that, that would have made her suicide a little more like a sacrifice, and it would have been a little bit more moving. I think if it wasn't that, like if maybe like the love that she had for him came back in that moment, and maybe if he asked her to do that, or if she just came up with this saying like she didn't want his soul to suffer anymore, so this is what she had to do. So I think that would have made more sense.
well, I'll give you this point.
You know what? Yeah.
Okay, so like I don't always agree with what this movie does, obviously, because I think that they, like all Frankenstein movies, this ends the way it does because the creature has to die. That's why she commits suicide. It doesn't make sense logically because, in theory, in my opinion, this Christina 2.0 is very much like the original Frankenstein's monster. It is a body that doesn't necessarily have a soul, or the question is, does it have its own soul? And that's kind of the question that the Christina 2.0 asks itself when Hans is no longer there. If it's like
Yeah.
if it's like the original creature and it doesn't know if it has its own soul, she doesn't know if she has a purpose. kind of like the Bride of Frankenstein's. The Bride of Frankenstein, the creature. She doesn't know why she's been born or anything, and she'd rather just die than to live. That's kind of like what I see as Christina 2.0. Now, if you want to go in and say that it would probably be much more logical if there was a whole thing of this whole possession idea, but that's not what they did here. They did soul transference. If it was possession, then Hans's soul would just say, I'm using Christina's body as a means to avenge my last dying wish before I pass on to the everlasting life. But that's not
Yeah.
what this film kind of gravitated towards. So Hans just having the ability to leave seems very weird to me.
Yeah, it seems very weird to me too. Unless if they all they needed was just one line of dialogue that would have sold this. If there's one freaking line of dialogue from him, they wouldn't even they could just ADR'd it. It would have been just fine. But if they made it so that in order for his soul to move on, she has to die. Because it's bound to her body. The only thing keeping it here is that body. So that's why she has to kill herself. And in fact, you know what? That's my headcanon for this movie. It makes more sense to me, and I'm just going to accept that.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah,
why.
no, I mean, I really like it would have been really cool if she didn't jump off the cliff.
Yeah.
It just that would have been like really cool if he talked her down, and then but they never want to do that. They always want to end with the monster dying.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Because
that's not entirely true, Watkins, because if you recall, there is one Frankenstein movie where the monster, well, for him or Frankenstein specifically, where the monster does not die.
Well, yeah.
And that's Revenge of Frankenstein, because Revenge of Frankenstein successfully creates a monster, and that is himself.
Yeah.
The one that goes to London, swinging London, and basically, well, not literally swinging London, but goes on and has we assume a very successful practice.
Right. That was a cool
yeah.
that was a cool ending. And that was a cool ending, and that's like but the main monster of that one does die in that one. But that's why like it would have been cool to keep her alive. But they seemed like they never wanted to follow continuity other than Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein or the Baron Frankenstein character. That's the only character they ever wanted to take from one movie to the next. They never wanted to bring somebody else.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with Hammer Dracula. I mean, they only bring Peter Cushing back twice, 3 times. That's it.
Yeah. They bring him back. They bring him back 3 times after the first one. They bring him back in Brides of Dracula, and then the last
19.
I think he's in the last 3. He's like 1972, and then the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires.
He's in both of those.
Yeah, but technically that's his descendant. That's not right.
But still, I get what you're saying though. They don't bring they actually have different. I mean, the same actor playing different characters like in several of the films. They never try to bring back a character other than Dracula or Van Helsing in the Dracula films. And then same thing with this.
It's fine though. It's same thing, different day.
With these films, Frankenstein, he has to create a new monster each film. That's pretty much the plot of each film. He has to create a new monster. So you couldn't really do that if they kept the monster alive in the previous film.
But what if she becomes his assistant though? It's like it would have been cool to go like the next one, like she's his assistant and helping him. Like they're gonna make another monster. Like a badass.
But wait, Watkins. If she were still alive in the next one, Frankenstein would just make his entire career off of her, just like he tried to do that with Carl in the second movie. He was going to go on tour with Carl all over the world. If any of his experiments succeed, he would have to go public eventually with it. He would have to go down in history as the guy who made soul transference a thing, or as the guy who transferred someone's brain into another thing, or as the guy who invented plastic surgery 150 years before it was even invented. He would have done that. But he has to fail in order for him to try again in the next movie.
Well, I mean, I get why they do it, but I'm just kind of wishful thinking on my part because I really liked her character.
Yeah, I mean, and also going into the the did you knows about this? Like, she was played by an actress, who's kind of interesting by the name of. She's from Austria.
Yeah, Susan Denberg is her name.
Yeah, Susan Denberg, and it's kind of sad. Like she only did 2 movies and a few TV shows. She had a small part in an episode of Star Trek, the original series.
Yeah, I
And
saw that. Yeah.
but right after this movie, which by the way, she is dubbed by another actress in this because she has a very thick Austrian accent.
Right.
Trying to imagine a sexy, beautiful version of Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I will not do a Schwarzenegger alternator for this, although that would have been perfect because she is Austrian. But like after this, she kind of got involved in kind of the sex and drugs of the 60s, and she kind of quit acting. And last she was seen is living in Austria with her mother, and she's still alive. But that's all. This is pretty much the movie that she is known for.
Right, I saw that at the end. I mean, I saw that she was still alive, which I thought was pretty cool. Someone else in this is still alive too. The guy that plays Hans is still alive, Robert Morris.
Oh yeah. In fact, I think he does a commentary on one of the. He's involved, I think, in the commentary to one of the DVD editions of this. I don't know which one. Maybe it's the Scream Factory one you have. I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't listen to it, but probably could be.
Which brings me up to a quick question, Dave. Do you have a 4K of this one, or is this just the Blu-ray copy?
There's not a 4K of this one yet, but it's Blu-ray. It looks pretty good. It's a Scream Factory one.
Okay.
Apparently, the other fun fact about this that I'll lean into a little bit, and we kind of answered the question already, which is that apparently this movie has a very famous fan. Martin Scorsese has said this is his favorite horror movie of all time. They asked him why, and it's because of the gothic style of this movie and the deep metaphysical themes of this movie, which make it very different from any Hammer Frankenstein before or really since.
Well, yeah,
they never really topped this movie for weirdness and metaphysical questions. I mean, we just scratched the surface of it in our discussion, but like you could literally just like go in deep with trying to figure out the mysteries of the soul in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right, guys. Do we have any other thing we have missed or need to discuss in regards to this film? We did
I don't have anything.
The conversation on this one.
I think so. Yeah, I feel good about this one, guys. I think we nailed it.
Well, I think because of the so many different types of themes that are readily apparent in this film. Yes, I think we did a really good job on this.
Man, gosh, we didn't even try to like dig into like the feminist stuff in this because this movie came out like when did like feminism was
67.
67 was really like the big okay, so this movie kind of came out just as that was becoming a thing. So like you could totally like do a feminist read on this because like this whole movie obsessively is about a man inside a woman's body and the question of like, is she really a woman? My gosh, we haven't even talked about like the possible trans angle of this a little bit. I mean, the idea of a a woman trapped in like what are you really on the inside? All that stuff is in this, but yet they don't really. It never feels preachy because they're not concerned about any of that at all. They're just concerned about trying to tell a gothic horror story, which is nice.
Yeah, I think those themes are not really there in this film. I think that they're like a cursory byproduct of the story because the film does not go into those.
Which I was surprised at. Honestly, I was surprised
I was a little surprised. It could have. It could be
that's what I was mentioning earlier. The way that she just is a woman and she's never not a woman, and as a matter of fact, she knows how to be a woman better than Christina. Knew how to be a woman. So
1.0.
The first Christina. But it's Which I'm glad they don't. I mean, that wasn't even something they were trying to explore at that point. Now they would do it. But.
Yeah, I think that if they were to do this, and someone should actually do this as a more modern story, you could really delve into the themes that were just hinted at in this film and come up with something really fucking creative.
I know. I think actually you could probably do this, and this kind of is indicative, I think, of something Sir Christopher Lee complained about in the Hammer Dracula movies. I feel like you could do this very easily as a generic kind of, well, I would say generic, but like as a mad scientist story that is totally divorced from the Frankenstein mythos. You can just do it like in the modern day, and like, or in a different thing where it's not even Frankenstein. It's just a regular scientist. And I think that's kind of what Sir Christopher Lee was like, complaining about. He's like, after a certain point, I think he said maybe like right around Dracula's Risen from the Grave, you could just as easily put any monster in those movies. It's just they were just cutting and pasting Dracula into any scenario that had really nothing to do with him. So I think you could probably do that. That's kind of happening with this franchise too at this point, for better or worse.
Well, with the Dracula stuff too, though, it's like they would always write those scripts without Dracula in them is the problem, and then like thinking that they weren't going to be able to get him, and then when they got him, they would write it both ways, and then when they got him, they would shoot the scenes. That's why that's why they were the way that he was saying that they were after a certain point.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see what a Hammer script where they were trying to get Dracula and they couldn't get him, but they made the movie anyway. Just watch Kiss of the Vampire, which is a magnificent movie, by the way. Yeah. It's fantastic, but you can clearly see this was supposed to be a Dracula movie.
But it also happens in Brides of Dracula, too.
Yeah, I was about to say Brides of Dracula, too.
Because Brides of Dracula was supposed to be Dracula. That was why after Brides of Dracula, they always wrote the scripts like two ways, so they could like not have him in there if something happened. Which kind of made the scripts not as good in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Well,
yeah, I wonder if there's like a collector's item script of like an alternative Dracula's Risen from the Grave where it's not Dracula. I'm not sure how you do that without.
That would be worth looking up with the availability of unproduced screenplays out there now and how easy it is to access them. That would be interesting to look up.
So yeah, if you guys are in the comments on the YouTube channels, chime in. Do you have a copy of those scripts, or you know where to get them? Let us know in the comments.
I got one right here. Actually, I wrote it. Dracula has risen from the grave without Dracula in it.
I got a woman created Frankenstein. Yeah. Oh, geez. All right, guys. I want to thank you for joining us on this conversation of Hammer Studio Horrors, in which we talked about Frankenstein Created Woman. For all of you listening, what we love to do is we love to rate the films between 1 and 5. But what we like to do is take an object, quote, or saying to attribute to our ratings. 1 is poor, 5 is amazing. Where on the spectrum do you place this film, and what object, quote, or saying do you want to attribute to it? And we're going to start off with you, Dave, this time.
So I'm gonna. I was not expecting you to say me first, but I guess I'm gonna go with the meat cleaver to be nice.
Oh, nice.
And I'm gonna give it 4 meat cleavers.
Okay.
4 meat cleavers out of 5.
How about you, Thomas?
Oh, good question. Well, you know how fond I am of the guillotine as a machine. I didn't mention this before, but like I did have an idea. I do have like a spec script that I was toying with, where it would basically be about the creation of the guillotine, because it's fascinating to me, because the guy who created the guillotine was an anti-death penalty advocate. It's a fascinating story, and like the whole script would be basically like a biography of the guillotine. But I'm not going to choose the guillotine, though, even though this movie, more than any other, probably has more guillotine shots and maybe more guillotine action than like any documentary about the French Revolution that's out there. But I think I'm gonna go with, I could either go macabre with this or metaphysical with this.
You go metaphysical. I'm going macabre as usual.
Okay, you know what? Then I'm gonna pick 3.5 floating sun souls inside that chamber out of 5. I think that's that shot of the soul when you actually see it is kind of what this movie is, and it makes it, like I said, very different than any other Hammer Frankensteins. I mean, if you're gonna pick and choose which ones you're gonna see, I would see the first 2, and then see this one. If you have time, then see Evil of Frankenstein. But yeah, you gotta, whatever you do, guys, if you're doing a marathon, you gotta have this one. And I say it's 3.5. It's got a lot of script problems, and that's why it's 3.5, not 5. But I still say it's thoroughly entertaining, very different than the other ones, and I like that about it. And I know I said before, I don't like it when there's not a proper monster, and there isn't really a proper monster in this. But this franchise does say many times that really the real monster is Frankenstein himself. And so I think they do enough new stuff with this quote unquote monster, Christina 2.0, as we'll call her, that it makes her. I wasn't disappointed. Let's just put it that way. I was not disappointed with this creature, quote unquote, like I was with the first creature in Revenge of Frankenstein, or how I'm probably gonna be disappointed with the one in Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, where it's literally just a guy with stitches in his head.
Okay, so I am not going to be as generous as you two are with this film because I'm just going to give it 2.5 severed heads in a picnic basket.
Yeah, that's a good total
I'm
there.
not my whole thing is when I rewatched it, all I see is this movie is filled with the whole movie to me is plot driven, and it annoys me. It annoys me. That being said, this is one of the Frankenstein movies in which I do not think Peter Cushing saves the whole movie like he does in so many other movies. He has the trial sequence, which I fucking love to death, but then he doesn't really save it anywhere else. That trial sequence is funny as shit, and the bar sequence when he first gets his champagne is a little bit, but it's not.
Yeah.
He saves the whole film because he's not in the whole film. He's
right.
Not.
It's not really about him. Yeah.
So for me, this is just a really mediocre movie. Despite the fact that I really did like Susan Denberg's performance as Christina, because she does go through many different changes and shows us many different facets. We see Christina 1.0, Christina 2.0, and then of course Hans and Christina. So I think she does a really good job. She's a huge standout in the film.
Yeah, and then she's like Terminator slasher Christina when she's got the cleaver.
Yeah. So I think she does a lot for this movie for me. And unfortunately, I love Peter. Everyone knows I love Peter Cushing. He doesn't save the movie for me. So I can only give it a 2 point.
I kind of like what they do with him in this one though. I like it's almost like it feels almost kind of Sherlock Holmes and Watson-y with him and Hertz and what they're working on.
Yeah,
It's
and he
kinda,
does. He did play Sherlock Holmes in Hound of the Baskerville, I think.
Yeah,
but
the other dude did play Watson as well, like 4 times, I think 4 or 5 times, like Dr. Hertz did. But it kind of feels like that a little bit.
Yeah, huh? That's neat.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Hounds of the Baskervilles that he did. We will get to that one day. That is on our list to get to. I have seen it. I just don't remember it because I've seen like 5 different versions of that goddamn story.
It's one of the better ones. But...
good. Oh, good, because I haven't seen any of them. That'll be my first.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
there's one that has Dudley Moore and Peter Cook in it.
That's not true. I'm sorry. Wait. That's not true. There is one version of Hound of the Baskervilles I have seen, but it's so like modern that it probably doesn't count. And that is the one in Sherlock, the series with Benedict Cumberbatch. That's the one I've seen.
Yeah. They pretty much do the same thing every time, though. It's a good story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. But I really like the Hammer version of it. But this, I haven't ever seen the one with Dudley Moore and Peter Cook. They made it a comedy. It's supposed to be really bad, though. Unfortunately, but that's really disappointing to hear. I'd hate to see it, and then it just would be real rough.
You should see it just to see it. I have not seen it in a very long time.
Oh, you did see it?
I was a Dudley Moore fan growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
I have not watched any of his movies in like 25, 30 years, except for like Father Like Son. Dude, I haven't seen anything he's done except for that movie. I love that movie.
Santa Claus again with that?
Oh,
I haven't seen that. Yeah. I haven't seen that in 35 years, dude. I haven't.
Yeah. Me neither. But I bought it on Blu-ray, intending to watch it last Christmas. Yeah. We never got around to it.
Same here. I have it too. I haven't bothered to watch it yet, so it's kind of hard. It is.
Apparently, they do have a 4K. It's not the U.S. release, and I've thought about getting it a few times, but I do have a DVD of it only.
It's
And I actually found it's funny. I was going through some stuff earlier today, and I actually came across it. I was like, "Oh, this is where this has been." So,
well, that's the thing I want to remind everybody who's listening to this podcast is that because we are all from different generations, having watched this film, we have different interpretations of it, especially if we've seen it multiple times or if you've only seen it once or twice. Like I've only seen this movie twice now, but when I rewatch it again, there are certain things that we talked about today that I'm going to keep my eye out on because I'd like to know certain aspects. And I think Thomas, you said you've only now seen the whole thing once. And then Dave, I can't remember if you ever said how many times.
well, this is the second time I think I've seen
Okay.
it on this one. Like I saw it one other time.
Yeah, so the thing is, these films, uh, we're on number 4 in the franchise, and in theory, the more the franchise goes on, the less likely we've seen them multiple times. I will definitely tell you that because this is one of the last ones I actually saw, in order. Not in order, but when I saw it,
Well,
I
there's only three more. There's only two proper ones left, so it's
yeah,
yeah,
but like this one, and I think it's the Monster from Hell
right.
were literally the last two I ever saw, and those were like within the last 5 years. Like
I
post,
haven't seen any of those, so that'll be a first for
yeah.
me.
So post COVID is when I saw this one and that one. But the other ones I'd seen, but never in order. So I hope that by watching the rest of them in order, maybe my opinions would change for this. I don't know if the next one is a direct sequel to this, or if it takes its own little tangent, or any of that. So
I
I'll
get
do
the feeling. I get the feeling it probably takes its own little tangent just by knowing what I know about Dr. Frankenstein's choices in that movie.
Yeah,
And
I've heard a little bit. Yeah,
I am dreading the watch of that movie.
it's funny. I've actually never seen that one. That's the only one I haven't seen.
Mm.
Almost, it's funny. I almost started watching it the other day. I put it in and I was watching it and I was like, wait a minute, this is not the right one. Because I noticed like right away because I was like supposed to be watching Frankenstein Created Woman, and I was like, this is not like I watched a few minutes of it. I was like, this is definitely not the next one in order. So, but yeah, that's the only one I haven't seen though. But I have heard about what you're saying about the bad decisions that he makes.
Oh gosh, yeah. I won't spoil
Okay.
it, but oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
don't spoil it. That would be
I
Yeah.
won't.
so. I want to thank you all for listening us talk about this film. Hopefully, you have enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully, if you have never seen Frankenstein Created Woman, you'll seek it out.
Good luck with that because the only place I could find it is on Internet Archive. Although I would say, audience, go out and try and find it in your local public library because they need your support these days.
I would say buy it from Screen Factory.
Yeah,
Because they need your support.
That too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, the Screen Factory has done a pretty damn good job producing Blu-rays of most of the titles, I believe.
But
Here,
they actually Warner Brothers has about half of them, and Scream Factory's done a few of them. Scream Factory did this one. They did the horror of Frankenstein, and then they did the last one was Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell.
okay, yeah, I was about to say they did the Monster from Hell one because I almost
Yeah.
picked that one up because I have
Did they do that? Did they do that? Did they do that 4K of Curse of Frankenstein that just came out?
Hammer themselves did it. It's really
Yeah, Hammer-
good. Yeah, they do have a Kino Lorber release of it too, though. That's supposed. No, I'm sorry, not Kino. It's Warner Brothers release, but it's the same transfers, so you can get it without having to buy the big set.
big set.
Okay.
It's through Warner Brothers.
So
It has a nice slipcover too. I like the artwork on it.
Oh, neat. So, guess, ladies and gentlemen, that's the version to get because since Netflix bought Warner Brothers, they're probably not going to do as much physical media these days. So, get them while you can, folks.
well, Warner Brothers didn't do much physical media either. That's why they had Warner Archives.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
gonna even work.
they don't. They usually take someone else's transfer, like Hammer or Studio Canal will do it, and then then
Yeah,
they'll
Warner,
take it.
Warner Brothers only put physical media out if they can guarantee a profit off of it. In other words, they had the Warner Archives, which I believe is no longer. It may be in service. I haven't checked in a while. Where it was kind of like pay on demand, like they'd make it if you wanted it, and that was about it, which was a great
Yeah.
service. Like a great service, because I got a lot of shit from Warner Brothers, like the old school Warner Brothers that you couldn't find on the shelf. But I don't know if that's still going to be a thing.
I don't think it is.
Well, the bad thing is they never put the stuff on their streaming service either. So
no. I mean, you might get it on Turner Classic Movies, but that's about it.
You know what? You'll get it on Netflix, because you know what? They love to have almost useless content that anyone will just one person out of a billion will watch one day. They love to have it. They will boast that we have 800,000 titles on Netflix. Come to us before you go anywhere else. I guarantee you. All right, with that, I want to thank you all for listening to our program today. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, do that thing you do on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, and YouTube. And please make sure to check out our sister podcast, Conversations in Horror, in which we delve into all the facets of horror from different subgenres and decades. We here love our horror, and we hope that you do too, and you enjoy us talking about it. From all of us here, please have a great day, and stay away from those experiments from Dr. Frankenstein. Oh, Baron Frankenstein.
Kill, 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 kill!
Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures and Something Wicked Entertainment podcast. It is hosted by Kevin L. Powers, original music provided by Dusty Ellison, produced and directed by Kevin L. Powers. Our executive producer is Kelly A. Inoka. This podcast is produced in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors is part of the Conversations in Horror podcast franchise and is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures. No part of this program can be used without express permission from Broken Lighthouse Pictures.